space and time to it's everywhere.
I don't like them.
All right, everybody. Welcome into the Central Committee stream with your host, Mike from PA. We are live once again. And ladies and gentlemen, we have done it. We have done it. Jake and Joel have won. It brings tears to your eyes. Jake and Joel have done it. If you remember, we've had Jake and Joel on the stream a couple times to lend our support and fundraise, and they kicked their asses. And the centrist Dem Republican alliance went down in fucking flames. Progressive topples former New Jersey Governor Jim McGreevey at Jersey City mayoral runoff. James Solomon will lead the second largest city in the Garden State. James Solomon, a 41-year-old city council member elected with the support of anti-machine progressives, will be the next mayor of New Jersey's second largest city. Shortly after the polls closed, Solomon was leading with 69% of the vote, which called the race. Tonight is a win for Jersey City against a corrupt political machine. Together, we're going to build a more affordable Jersey City where everyone has a chance to thrive and where people are put first, not developers and special interests. My promise to Jersey City is simple. I will be a mayor for you. McGreevey, who announced his campaign an unheard of 2 years before the election, had establishment backing that turned into baggage. He joins former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who lost his bid to become mayor of New York City just across the Hudson River, as a politician who grasps for a second chance in public light that voters didn't want to give them. Solomon, meanwhile, forged an alliance of anti-machine figures like Senator Andy Kim and former rivals that didn't make the runoff, including Hudson County Commissioner Bill O'Day and Musab Ali, a TikTok famous progressive. Both McGreevey and Solomon campaigned on similar themes, like the high cost of housing in a city that's known to some as New York City's sixth borough and has the rental prices to show for it. But Solomon campaigned against developers while McGreevey campaigned with their donations. Solomon came in first in a 7-way November 4th general election with 29% to McGreevey's 25%, but that wasn't enough to seal a deal and set the race to a runoff. You probably wish we defunded the police because you've been under investigation from so many different law enforcement agencies, Solomon said during one debate. Okay, that's actually really funny. That's actually a good quip. And it's also incomprehensible and complete rubbish, but like McGreevey's right. But it does hit. While McGreevey resigned with a speech remembered for the line, "I am a gay American," and his fall is often tied solely to his sexual orientation in an era before widespread acceptance, he was involved in several controversies at the time, most notably putting his lover on the state payroll as Homeland Security advisor in the months after 9/11 without proper credentials. But at least one person is expected to leave. Solomon's predecessor, Mayor Stephen Fulop, who lost a bid earlier this year to become governor, is moving to New York to run that city's preeminent business group. Wow, I mean, amazing, chat. Amazing. Wow, it turns out the centrists and Republicans are pretty much the same fucking thing. And they got their asses. So congratulations to Jake and Joel. I was glad. And I posted something yesterday, chat. Let me see here. There's a bunch of other dumb shit. Yesterday was very annoying. I'm not going to lie. I said, proud to see these amazing socialist candidates, Jake and Joel Brooks, pull off an unbelievable wins at Jersey City. I was proud to be an early endorser and fundraiser for these two incredible guys. I thought the rich folks were moving out of New York. No, they're not. Guys, rich people pay like 70% tax rates. The idea that they're going to like leave a city because they have to pay 2% more in tax on every dollar over $1 million, it's just nonsense. If you believe that, you're actually a freaking moron. You're actually a moron. Like, legitimately a moron. These people spend thousands and thousands of dollars on bags. They'll buy shit and then never use it for millions of dollars. Like, they're not walking away from a city that has all of the world's best amenities for 2% tax. It's just not even close to true. And I think you have to be kind of stupid to think it's true or even kind of entertain it. And it looks like Afton Bay was unable to win. She ended up losing by 8 points. I think it's probably going to end up narrowing a little bit when all the votes come in. But it looks like Afton Bay got beat. And honestly, that's a big swing. 22-point district. You know, losing that by 8, that's a 14-point swing. That's a really good effort. But ultimately, it's so gerrymandered. And this is the reality of gerrymandering, guys. This is why if you were one of those people that's like, we shouldn't gerrymander California in response to Texas, because that's going to ruin the system. I'm sorry, that's idiotic. Even with a 14-point swing, it didn't matter. That's what, nearly 1 in 6 people changing their mind on politics at a year period, and you lose? That's crazy. Mabel was saying that the seat is up in another year so she could run again. I mean, personally, and I'm going to be quite honest with you, I don't think this is a good district. You know, a lot of people have this kind of video game mentality or movie mentality where if you just press X, Y, Z, Y, A, B, Y, A, it doesn't, you know, as long as you do the perfect deflection, you're going to win. And it's like the district is just so right wing, even with persuading every single person who is open to persuading, you won't win. Or in order to win this district, there'd have to be some sort of fundamental shift in politics, which maybe could happen, but it's not certainly something you can make happen as a candidate for Congress. And I feel like this is one of those things that I think a lot of people have a hard time accepting because it almost seems anti-democratic for me to say it, which is like a large portion of people are just not willing to change their mind at all, like at all. And the Republican Party has a base. And whenever I have these kind of conversations with people, like I like my rant the other day where I was talking about people going like, I can't believe Bernie and AOC sold out. It proves that running left-wing politicians is worthless because we won with Bernie and AOC. And it's like, no, we didn't. We didn't win shit. What are you talking about? You are inventing a reality that did not happen. Bernie Sanders was never president. AOC was a backbencher. She's not a leader of the Democratic Party. They're not. None of their policies have been implemented. They haven't won. It wasn't a failure of entryism. They didn't win. That's the sense of that it's a failure. We didn't persuade the voters. We lost. And I think a lot of people like to imagine some worldview or some reality that did not happen in order to basically protect themselves from believing again. That's what it is. It is I don't want to get hurt again. I touched the stove and I felt bad. And it's like, get over yourself. Like, I look at this dish. Yesterday, I was very optimistic about it. And I think that we have to adjust our priors. We have to adjust our priors. And I was one of those people who didn't think that Donald Trump endorsing would get people to show up, or people that are not named Donald Trump. And that, guys, ladies and gentlemen, is not true. Donald Trump has shown both in the Zohran Mamdani race and in this Matt Van Epps race that if he shows up and he tells his voters to vote for some guy, a decent amount of them are going to show up. Like, some of these rural counties saw in some pretty good turnout. There wasn't depressed turnout among Republicans. That's the reality. The Republicans showed up. And in the same thing with Zohran, the Republicans in Staten Island showed up to vote against Zohran. Like, that's just true. And so we probably need to move our expectations. You know, Democrats are going to have huge advantages of turnout to just not be the case. It looks like Republicans are going to be showing up. Now, it seems like every persuadable person hates the Republicans. So it's a double-edged. So what does that mean? It means to me, every district that's about R plus 15 or better should be considered. And every district that's R plus 10 or better is very winnable. That's what I would say. Okay. And her district is just too far outside of the realm of plausibility. What is Afton Bay supposed to do then? She could run for mayor of Nashville. She could run for county-wide seats in Nashville. So that's just the that's just the reality of it. And I think a lot of people are very unsatisfied with some places just not being on the board because it tastes bad. It feels like we're abandoning people. We're not abandoning people. All right. It is just reality. That's not where the battle lines are. And you should just take that as a lesson. Like, if you're in a district that's more than 20 points Republican, like Trump won by more than 20 points, it's probably not flipping. Now, if you have a opponent who is a child molester or some sort of like mega scandal, then maybe. But this is just learning reality, you know? I think a lot about World War II whenever I think about elections, because I think a lot of people have the approach to politics the same way as members of the Soviet Central Committee did in the battlefields of the Eastern Front. There was a period where the Germans were winning against numerically superior armies, and a certain type of socialist would be like, well, we are sending more bullets and more men and more tanks. Why did we lose the battle? You know, wars are material, right? How are we losing when we have superior material? And it's like, that's not what material means. You have forgot raw resources and effort are not the same thing as what the actual battlefield looks like. A better analogy is, how much water does it take to drown a person? You know, depends upon how that person is free to move. If I have you tied down, I could drown you in a bucket of water. So we need to be a little bit more real. You know, you need to be able to evaluate the terrain. And politics is about being able to aim for ambitious outcomes, but also to have realistic expectations about what's plausible. And I think that this, you know, the reason why we all cared about this race is because this was the race that we had. Like, there's really, like, if there was a special election in an R+10 district, we would have cared about that. But unfortunately, there wasn't. And so we put our effort into this because this is the only one we can do. That's the nature of American politics. It's not, it is what it is. What is the strategy for a cesspool like Florida? Florida is a lot more winnable than the Tennessee House 7 special election. The other thing is, like, I am a person who believes can I give you guys my theory of politics really quickly, specifically around alignments and realignments? And you could tell me what you disagree with, and it should be interesting. But basically, it's this. All politics is national. Americans no longer have, you know, geographic diversity to an extent where our politics are different. If you travel and talk to a Republican in Alabama or a Republican in an exurb in Philadelphia, they're going to be watching the same exact television shows, listening to the same exact influencers, and they're going to be saying these very similar things. Politics, so in that context, the only way we are going to get political realignments is if the national parties change, meaning the biggest offices like presidential nominee are the ones that actually dictate people's opinions about the parties. So you could have a very progressive person running in the district. Joe Biden is president. The way people think about Democrats is not the progressive running in the district. It is Joe Biden. Similarly, if AOC is the nominee, the way people think about the Democratic Party will be about AOC. It won't be whatever centrist Dem is actually running in the seat. And so that is the context that I'm making. Right, which is, I believe all politics are national. I think local effects are smaller than ever, and that if we want to see these big dramatic realignments, you have to have a dramatic realignment of the standard bearer. And I think Donald Trump has proven that point. A lot of the realignment we've seen is surrounded around the personality of Donald Trump and the presentation style of Donald Trump, appealing to these kind of ancestrally democratic groups like working class people. These people were not dramatically shifting towards the Republicans because of Jeb Bush. All right. And that is my theory. So for us to achieve the kind of radical realignment that we hope to see, we would need to have a national political figure, a national presidential nominee that embodies those political trends that we support. I say this not because I want it to be true. I say this because people are less locally rooted than ever before. They spend more of their time looking at screens filled with people like me than they do in union halls, you know, in their community, touching grass and organizing politically. They don't read local newspapers anymore because the local newspapers do not exist. And so the national nature of politics, like, why am I talking about Tennessee's 7th special election? Because we all understand that politics is nationalized. It feels like the monoculture has actually increased in politics, where pop culture has become more proliferated. Does that have to do with the emphasis of culture war replacing material debates? I think it has to do with the nature of the structure of communication. I think that the structure of how people engaged and thought about politics has been fundamentally altered, first by radio, then by television, then by online spaces and social media, and now, through podcasts and streaming. So the way that people listen to politics or think about politics is not through reading their local opinion page or reading their local, newspaper's evening edition. You guys even know what that is? You know what I mean? Like, the things have so fundamentally altered. Because we're all consuming politics from the same place, the diversity of our political positions is not completely gone, but is narrowing. As goes every transformative communication epoch since Gutenberg. Yeah, exactly. I mean, many people trace the Protestant Reformation to the proliferation of the Bible in a diverse array of liturgical faiths, right? Instead of reading the Bible being gatekept behind knowing Latin, right? People started translating the Bible into their local language, and it democratized the interpretation of the Bible away from the elites of the Catholic Church. And then in combination with, feudalism and the desire for the material wealth of the church by secular authority, there was a combination of those factors, right, that led to the Protestant Reformation. And so religion itself was altered by what? Not by a revelation from God, but the development of a technology. How material, how base. And kind of how funny is that for religion? You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, guys, God didn't reveal the true way to interpret Christian scripture until 1600, and some guy invented a printing press, and that's when the real Christianity got invented. And made it possible to be a fundamentalist? Oh, yeah, definitely. I think the thing about the Catholic Church is that it's not a fundamentalist organization. It never was. Gatekeeping the Bible allowed for an enforcement of a kind of more common theological perspective. And, the elimination of that led to a crack in the power of the Catholic Church. It is what it is. I think of the Southern Baptists as an inversion of Breitbart's position. Breitbart's wrong. He says politics flows from culture, and it's like, no, culture flows from the base and the means of production and the technology surrounding our communication and who controls them. That's not culture flowing to politics. That's material reality and materialism and the base of the superstructure. Breitbart's a fucking idiot. But he was right that people could only believe from the menu of options they perceive to exist. This is something that a lot of you guys don't understand, which is socialist revolution is not on the menu for most people. They don't know what that means, and they don't see a path for if that outcome would even be desirable. So if you're talking about how, elections are useless because socialism would win if only we would all focus on whatever project you think is important, which is oftentimes not brought up. The reality is that most people don't have that on the as a possibility in their mind. And when I say people, I mean the class as a whole. And that's the problem that needs to be addressed by socialists like ourselves.
Just deal with it. I heard it my whole life. All working people do. I'm done dealing. Big corporations, billionaires, and Donald Trump have rigged the game for too long. And every day Utahns are losing. When I was 19, I packed up my Honda Civic and I headed west. I ended up here in Utah. There were cheap rooms to rent, and you could be up on top of Little Cottonwood Canyon in just a few minutes flat. Then student debt piled up, a couple surgeries and medical bills I couldn't pay. SNAP benefits helped me put food on the table when times were tough. That's not just my story. It's a reality for too many. And as Utah gets more expensive, it's only getting worse. That's why I stepped up to serve my community in the first place. I'm not afraid to take on the establishment. I ran against the 36-year incumbent from my own party who had a track record of cutting bad deals with Republicans, and I beat him by 50 points. Since I took office, I fought tooth and nail for the people I represent. Republican leaders have cut off my mic and called me a punk for speaking truth to power. And you know what? I'm proud of that. I'm Nate Fluin. I'm a Democrat running for Congress in Utah's 1st Congressional District to take on big corporations in the billionaire class, to make housing and energy more affordable, to fight for Medicare for all, to protect our public lands, and to build a future for us, not for them. I'm running to stop Trump and his Republican enablers who represent Utah in Congress. You're never going to wonder where I stand on tough issues like abortion because I'll tell you. We're going to take back the House and codify Roe. Trust me, the same folks who got us into this mess are not going to be the ones to get us out of it. It's up to us. If you're sick of the same rigged game, if you're done just dealing with it, I hope you'll join us.
All right, Chad, this is the new left-winger running in Utah's Salt Lake City district. It just this morning endorsed by Bernie Sanders.
Time now for Inside Utah Politics with Lindsay Aerts.
Well, welcome into IUP Plus today. So glad you asked. Hopefully you're watching us on our News for Utah Plus app. That is our free TV streaming app. So if you got Amazon.
We need more ski bums in the you know, like we need people to care about skiing so they start fighting climate change. When I was a young whippersnapper, the ski season was from November to fucking May. Now we're lucky to get it 2 months. You ski. The one thing that my father did right was that he just liked learn new shit and teach me it as well. That was cool. Just make up a study that says climate change is going to make it impossible for golf balls to fly straight and every Republican will fall in line. It won't. It's December and they'll do like a fucking indoor golf course. It's December. The snow has finally reached me here in Utah last night. Yeah, I mean, it's fucking insane. He's for Medicare for all. Yeah, I know. He's also against Israel.
On Fire, Roku, or Apple TV. Go download it now. Just search for News for Utah Plus. That's the new jingle.
New.
It's the new jingle. The News.
I like that little
Utah.
Yeah.
By the way, chat, look at the Young Republican Club. Young Republican chapter of New York City plans to host far-right German leader after I Love Hitler chat. A New York City-based Republican club will honor a far-right German leader at its annual gala just 8 weeks after the statewide counterpart was disbanded over a group chat in which members praised Adolf Hitler. The city-based New York Young Republican Club gala will recognize Markus Krunmeier, a political leader from the Alternative for Deutschland Party. Months before his visit, the club appeared to play up the party's controversial place in German politics. In August, it published a statement calling for a new civic order in Germany and declaring AfD über alles, an adaptation of a phrase associated with the Nazi party. In a statement to Politico, the group defended inviting the German politician, calling the AfD model for fighting the far left and denying their über alles statement was intended to invoke Nazism. Germany's Federal Office for the Protection of the Constitution, country's domestic intelligence agency, has labeled the AfD extremists, alleging the party holds ethnic, racial conception of the German people that violates core tenets of the country's democratic order. But the party has been ascendant for several years, with some polls ranking it the most popular in Germany. President Donald Trump's administration and his allies have taken note. Secretary of State Marco Rubio condemned the German intelligence agency's move to label the party extremist, calling it tyranny in disguise. Vice President J.D. Vance criticized other parties' efforts to ostracize the AfD, and MAGA ally Elon Musk has been a staunch supporter of the party. Krummeyer, the deputy chair of AfD's parliamentary group, will be an honored guest at the December 13 gala, which will also feature GOP representatives Andy Ogles, Mike Collins, William Timmons, according to the group's website. It's deeply concerning that the New York Republican Club is planning to honor a regional co-chair of the far-right extremist AfD party at their upcoming gala, said Tom Gutnick, a spokesperson for the Anti-Defamation League, in a statement. The German AfD party has a disturbing history. Are you going to say concerning and disturbing? That includes anti-Semitic and xenophobic rhetoric. AfD has embraced the anti-Semitic Great Replacement conspiracy, and its current leader, Alice Weidel, has denounced Germany's dedication to Holocaust remembrance as a guilt. Wow, I can't believe the Nazis are... we were right all along, huh? How about that? Donald Trump has pardoned Representative Cuellar. For years, the Biden administration weaponized the justice system against their political opponents and anyone who disagreed with them. One of the clearest examples of this was when Crooked Joe used the FBI and DOJ to take out a member of his own party after highly respected Congressman Henry Cuellar bravely spoke out against open borders and the Biden border catastrophe. Sleepy Joe went after the congressman and even the congressman's wonderful wife, Imelda, simply for speaking the truth. It is un-American, and as I previously stated, the radical left Democrats are a complete and total threat to democracy. They will attack, rob, lie, cheat, destroy, and decimate anyone who dares oppose their far left agenda, an agenda that, if left unchecked, will obliterate our magnificent country. Because of these facts and others, I hereby announcing my full and unconditional pardon of beloved Texas Congressman Henry Cuellar and Imelda. Henry, I don't know you, but you can sleep well tonight. Your nightmare is finally over. Biden just, I mean, isn't it weird that all these centrist Dems end up being allies of Donald Trump? Like, isn't that weird? It's almost like all these people are on the same side. Like, isn't that odd? Like, isn't that odd that all these centrist Democrats always end up as allies of Donald Trump after they get exposed for corruption? Nancy Pelosi and Jim Clyburn campaigned for this guy over progressive candidate Jessica Cisneros. Yes, I know, guys. Guys, you're talking to me. I probably told you about it. I've been calling this shit out on the Majority Report since 2015. It's been a main point of my show since 2019 is that centrist Democrats are allies of Republicans. I was poll watching for Jake and I overheard a Hudson County Republican politics guy tell Kat Healy, Jake's opponent, that he was phone banking a JC Republican list for her and McGreevy. Yes, I know, because they're Republicans. Duh!
Hello, it's Speaker Nancy Pelosi calling on all voters in the 28th District of Texas to vote for Henry Cuellar. Henry is a fighter for hardworking families. In Congress, Henry has championed good-paying jobs and health care for our people. It's
just literal nonsense as well. Like, he doesn't even vote for anything good. In fact, he votes against the party, frustrates the party on every close election. He sides with, on every close vote, he sides with the Republicans. It's actually useless to have him elected at all.
Brought back millions of dollars to the district. Please vote for Henry Cuellar on May 24th so they continue to fight for you and to serve as your champion. Thank you.
So overall, chat, yesterday was a pretty damn good day. Obviously, you know, I think all of us are eager for as many, rebukes of the Trump administration as we can get. And I don't think that pushing for that seat was a mistake by any means. I think that we all should realize that even a strong progressive realignment is not going to defeat gerrymandering in many of these seats, right? Like, and the reality is we don't need everybody convinced. This is what I need you to understand, chat. We don't need everybody convinced. We need to have power. Power is about imposing our will. My goal is not to convince Asmongold. My goal is to force Asmongold to comply. That is what our political goals should be about. I honestly don't give a shit if people that don't care, have no moral integrity, who are liars, who have no positive program, have no feeling or sense of empathy or solidarity with any other human being, agree with me or not. All I know is we already have 65-70% of people on board with our program. We just need to convince them that it's plausible and that we're actually going to achieve it. That's what we need to be focusing on. We don't need to be focusing on turds like Asmongold, because there's nothing to offer somebody like that. He doesn't believe in anything. So what are we going to do? There's no way to persuade a guy like that. I want to push a Dem candidate further toward economic populism, but I don't want to accidentally sabotage him. There's no way that being economically populist is going to sabotage you outside of a very, 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 very few districts of the most ultra wealthy people. Fuck, Ro Khanna represents one of the richest districts in the country, and he's economically populist. Economic populism is majority in every single fucking district. The second we're popular, he'll be like, yeah, based. I mean, he already tries to hedge it by being like, I support Bernie Sanders, Medicare for all. Like he already tries to set himself up as a hedge. Meanwhile, all he does is spend all his time attacking everybody who's an ally of Bernie Sanders. Because he fundamentally understands what I said earlier, which is what makes Asmongold popular is not because he's intelligent. It's that he understands the nature of politics. He does have one insight, which is it is the nationally known figures that determine the general mood. And the nationally known figure of Bernie Sanders, most people already have an opinion of Bernie. They're not going to need to get an opinion from him. And the majority opinion is that Bernie Sanders is pretty based. Okay? He doesn't fight that. He doesn't fight that position because that might alienate some people. But what he does do is focus on making you have opinions of people that you don't have an opinion of yet and make it negative if it's somebody who's left wing. Not to be an edgelord, but as a smart man once said, communism is not love. Communism is a hammer which we use to crush the enemy. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously true. The purpose of socialism is to dismantle the capitalist class. The purpose of socialism is to dismantle the idea that we need a class of people who just sit around owning things and making undemocratic decisions for the rest of us. That's what socialism is against. We all know Asman would never actually vote for a politician that advocates for Medicare for all. He's a fake. Of course he's a fucking fake. Of course he doesn't believe in Medicare for all. Of course he doesn't believe in anything. He's a fucking fraud. And like most Southern racists, he holds on to the idea of racial superiority because if he examined himself as an individual, he would realize that genetically and otherwise he falls up short. He comes up short. All right, chat. There's a video somebody linked to me the other day about how greed is destroying the world. And
I feel like for the past
this is how you could tell that the vibes are in full shift mode. And this is also why the chat, and this is where I disagree with some leftists. I think you need to make, I do think that there should be personalities that we target, exemplars of the billionaire class that we make everyone hate. I personally think that that is necessary politically. People should hate Elon Musk. They should hate Jeff Bezos. They should hate the Murdochs. They should hate the Sacklers. They should hate the Mercers. They should hate the Kochs. They should hate the Waldens. We need to have foes. Peter Thiel. And the best part about billionaires is they're not elected, which means they don't go away until they're no longer a billionaire. So the only way they go away is when we achieve victory. Who disagrees with that? A lot of people disagree with that. A lot of people, I call them idiots, but that's me being me. A lot of people think that you should not do any kind of targeting that's not focused at a class, right? Or a system. I disagree. I think having visible, trackable enemies sharpens the human mind because human beings have one problem, and that is excessive agency attribution, which is a cognitive bias, right? So what we do is we try to create agents whenever we see an outcome. And instead of us, like, I'll give you an example, like when there was a hurricane that came and blew down the village or blew down your hut, you would say, oh, that's the wind god. I must have done something to piss off the wind god. I need to make sure I say a prayer to the wind god, right? You wouldn't say, well, no, this is the Coriolis effect and the wind is, there must have been unequal heating because of a localized, spontaneous fluctuation in wind currents that created a runaway. You wouldn't explain weather as a system. It would create an agency for it. Like that's what human beings did. We literally name hurricanes to this day, which is ascribing them agency and personality and identity. You know what I mean? Like we'd still to this day do that. So we know this cognitive bias exists. I personally know that if Jeff Bezos went away tomorrow, capitalism would keep on churning. If every single known billionaire tomorrow dropped dead, would that end capitalism? If every single billionaire caught a disease that only killed billionaires and they all died, would that end capitalism? And the answer to that is no. And so, but why is the answer to that no? Because the moment they died, a new person becomes a billionaire because our systems are set up to transfer property in a concentrated and coordinated manner to the next generation of capitalists. That's happening every day, is an old rich person dies and creates a younger rich person. At no point does the wealth revert back to society. In fact, most wealthy people can actually trace their lineage to people who were wealthy nobles in the feudal era. This is literally true, especially in Europe. Most of the richest people in Europe can literally trace their lineage back to being wealthy feudal lords. Basically, they've just coasted off generational wealth for 1,000 years. So it's important to not lose sight that if Elon Musk, slipped off this mortal coil because he jerked off too hard with his tortured, broken penis, that wouldn't end capitalism. However, for the purpose of a conception of who our enemies are, they're a great fucking target. And the way they live their lives exemplifies the superfluousness of billionaires. We don't need them. Literally. Nothing about our society requires a billionaire.
3 years, I've heard over and over again that a recession is about to hit. The stock market is going to crash. The housing prices are going to come back down to earth any day now. And yet somehow all of these things keep not happening. And for most people, it doesn't make sense. What do you mean the economy's good? My dentist just tried to get me to sign up for a credit card. Since the pandemic, the cost of living has skyrocketed. Inflation is out of control. Groceries have never been more expensive. Layoffs are happening at an alarming rate. At this point, a college degree might be more likely to get you into crippling debt than it is to help you find a job. And even if you have savings, you're more than likely one stroke of bad luck away from losing it all to medical bills. And yet some people will look you right in the eyes and tell you, I don't know what you're talking about. The numbers are green.
Is this guy stupid?
The problem is each of these people are kind of correct in their own way. This is the best the economy has ever been if you already have money. If you bought a house 5 years ago, there's a chance it's already doubled in value. If you invested in the S&P 500 in 2021, you could be up as much as 80%. And that's not like saying, you'd be rich if you just bought Bitcoin in 1973. That's just the regular stock market. You didn't need to have some genius level of foresight to be able to do that. You just needed to already have a bunch of cash sitting around. And obviously for the overwhelming majority of people, that is not the case. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're not thinking about the stock market. If you're in your 20s, you haven't even been working long enough to save any money to invest. You don't get to benefit from rising home equity if you don't own a house. The only thing this graph represents to you is how much further away that dream is getting. Right now, the average age of home buyers is 59 years old. What a depressing statistic. This is the problem with...
That's, by the way, that, ladies and gentlemen, is why the fertility rate is going down. It's literally the case. That people are not able to afford a home until they have, maybe 2-3 years of fertility left, and it's the tail end. The American society is literally dying out because people cannot afford to make their own home. And 59-year-olds are retired. So basically all that's saying is that the only people that are buying houses are people that already had a house.
An economy that disproportionately benefits asset holders instead of the people still trying to earn them. Wealth grows exponentially, but wages aren't even outpacing inflation, which means if your salary hasn't been going up every year, you're effectively making less money. Meanwhile, the fastest way to make $1 million is to just already have 10 million. Leave it in an investment account for a year and congratulations, you now have $11 million. At a larger scale, this is why it feels like there's two different economies happening and they're both moving in opposite directions. 50% of the stock market is owned by the top 1%, and only 1% is owned by the bottom 50%. Don't let somebody tell you that these numbers going up should discredit your own lived experience. Don't let somebody who's benefited from untaxed inheritance or years of compound interest granting them passive income tell you that your problem is you're just not working hard enough. No, the real answer is sorry, you should have been born sooner. Have you thought about that? Maybe instead of wasting all that time farting around kindergarten class, you should have been investing in real estate. It's not my fault you're lazy. People are getting squeezed in every direction while also being gaslit into thinking that it's somehow our fault. There's CEOs in earnings calls bragging about how they get to make customers pay for inflation so they don't have to. The economy is so bad right now, I'm about to segue into an extremely ill-timed brand deal in a video about greed. You think I like looking like a hypocrite? Of course not. But my avocado toast isn't going to pay for itself. Hi, I'm Upside Down, and I'm here to tell you about today's sponsor, NordVPN. If you're watching this right now, the only reason we're not technically video. The economy sucks ass for most people right now. The only reason we're not technically in a recession is because the GDP is still going up. But the only reason the GDP is still going up is because of the AI industry. But the only reason that even looks as good as it does is because a handful of companies are just like passing money back and forth. But there's no recession. You're hallucinating that. Because the AI industry is now single-handedly propping up the entire global economy, there's really only two paths forward. Worst case scenario, turns out it is all bullshit. The bubble pops in spectacular fashion, trillions of dollars of investments cannot get paid out, and everything goes up in flames. Or best case scenario, a few billionaires get even richer. Wait, is that what we're hoping for? All right, you're gonna have to bear with me while I go on.
There's actually a third way, the way that it's going to go, which is it is going to blow up in spectacular fashion and the billionaires are going to get bailed out while all the rest of us get... That's the secret third way. And because you guys are all cleared out, the billionaires are going to come in and when there's a 10 million foreclosed homes sitting out there, buy them all up on the cheap and rent them out for you. That's why in Atlanta, for example, 30% of the homes are owned by investors. Or private equity. They want that number to go up.
Another AI rant here. I know I do this like every 6 months, but it's not going away. It doesn't count as beating a dead horse if the horse is still alive.
Correct.
We got to kill that horse first. People largely do not like AI and are worried about the future it imposes. It's currently being used to make a bunch of promises that almost no...
What if loved ones we've lost could be part of our future? This is actually demonic. This is demonic. This is demon shit. This is like everything that all the movies were trying to warn you about. This is Pet Cemetery shit. Death is horrible, but having some disgusting corporation take all the data of your grandmother so they can try to micro target you better with ads, or worse yet, oh my God, I've had the most evil idea I've ever had in my entire life. I just had the most evil idea I've ever had in my entire life. What if we could micro-target ads to people using their deceased loved ones? So like, for example, ping golf clubs. Let's say that there's a photo of you that gets uploaded into the AI of you playing golf with your dad, right? And then ping, when you click on TikTok, sends you an ad of your dad saying, hey son, remember when we used to golf together? I miss you. I'm looking down at you from heaven and I love you. But you know what I really enjoyed about playing golf with you? The way that my hand-fitted ping golf clubs would really connect with the ball, sending it an extra 12 yards on average over other competitive models. Please consider getting ping golf clubs and we can reminisce. I'll look down at you as you finally break 90. And they know what your scores you average because they have all your data. Like ping could be like, hey, it's your dad from heaven again. I've noticed that on your approach shots that you're giving it too much club. Why don't you try doing a 3/4 swing instead of clubbing down? By the way, long irons are on sale at ping.com. Coupon code GHOSTDAD to save an additional 5%. Like, this is the type of shit I'm talking about. New Black Mirror episode unlocked. Yeah. This is literally the Nathan For You bit about the dead dog in heaven. This shit has been going on since people started cloning their dog. You guys know about this? Like, you have a dog that you really love and he dies. And instead of like doing the really mature thing, which is crying about it and feeling bad forever, they would like clone the dog. I'm sorry, that's fucking evil. No. Go and get another dog. Stop wasting resources cloning the dog. It's a different dog anyway. What made your dog is that they lived through certain experiences with you at a certain age in your life. It's not the same dog. The fact that your dog remembered that you stepped on their tail that Thanksgiving, that's part of what made them your dog, okay? The cloning the dog plot was one of the best and saddest episodes of Futurama, and it agrees with you 100%. Yes, of course. It's not even agree. It's not about agree. It's just material reality. It's a different fucking dog. And it's weird to fixate on something that's gone and create these totems that mimic life. It's one thing to watch a old video or look at a picture or a portrait of a loved one or read a letter they wrote. that is from the context in which it was created. But to create an AI ghost, and the way they create it is they soak up all the data about your grandmother. That's the thing these disgusting profiteers are doing. They are not doing it because they love your grandma. They just want her data so they can make money. I worked as a crisis counselor for a crisis text line for years until it was revealed that they were selling the data of these conversations we had with people at their lowest to AI companies to trade their sales chatbot. Chat, you need to empower me. You need to empower me. Keep a smile if you want to empower Mike. You know I'm the guy who could do what needs to be done. This is me, chat, but without the tears. All right, let's keep going. President Xi, please invade so we can bring about struggle sessions. Oh my God, the American Cultural Revolution would go hard.
One asked for. The main appeal of it comes from corporations who see advancements in AI as a way to further reduce their dependence on human labor. The only
Minecraft.
thing cheaper than outsourcing.
I'm obviously kidding. I'm not advocating for the American land reform movement or an American cultural revolution. I'm not saying those are desperately needed right now. That would be extremist.
Jobs is just eliminating them altogether.
Wait, that's just an AI bot, bro. Don't post AI bots.
The wet dream that soils the sheets of every CEO is a company that's somehow run entirely on its own, and they can just sit back and collect all the profits for themselves. No more dealing with pesky labor laws or health insurance or can I have Saturday off? My family died. No! Shut up. That's the eventual goal, and why they're all pouring billions of dollars into NVIDIA chips and data centers and cool shirts for Mark Zuckerberg. And in the meantime, we're stuck with ChatGPT, a humanized Google search designed to affirm whatever belief you share with it, even if it's incredibly dangerous, or generative video apps that are already being used to trick people into thinking something happened that didn't actually happen. Awesome technology. I'm so glad this exists. And I think the best thing we can do to fight back against AI is to simply not engage with it. The problem is, even if you don't use these tools, if you live in certain parts of the country, you might be paying for them. There's been a lot of really good investigative journalism done on all these new data centers that are popping up around the country, who's funding them and who's getting screwed over in the process. For example, some residents in New Jersey who noticed that their power bill kept going up, even though they were actually using less electricity than usual. Well, it turns out it's due to an overall supply cost. Basically, when the total amount of electricity usage in an area goes up, power companies tend to pass those higher costs onto their customers. And for the past several years, electricity usage has been skyrocketing, with over half of that increase coming solely from data centers. Your utility bill is going up because Elon Musk wants to pretend to have a girlfriend. You see, AI doesn't just...
Wait, is this real? Chat, is this real? She smiles and says, I will always love you. Somebody link me this post if it's real. Listen, I don't want to say anything that's going to get me in trouble, but doesn't it kind of seem like these guys are just mad at the world that they haven't died? Like that they, like, you know what I mean? Like they're waiting to die. Like they have no reason to live. And it's just, they're just sitting there rotting and they're too cowardly to like they just sit there. I want you to imagine that you have all the money in the world. You could do whatever you want 24/7, 365. I want you to imagine, thank you chat, we got it. I want you to imagine that you have utter freedom to do whatever you want, when you want. I would be miserable still, I think. Well, I'm not miserable now, so you might be onto something. You can't buy life's purpose. My black lab got a clean bill of health from the vet today, Mike. Oh, are you just rubbing it in? No, I'm glad your puppy's feeling good.
And I will always love you.
That looks like shit. That looks like fucking shit. This looks terrible. What are you talking about? Oh my God, am I losing it? Am I fucking losing it? This looks like shit. I think the thing about Elon Musk is he's just like an absolute piece of garbage. He's such an absolute piece of garbage, and there's literally nothing redeeming about him at all. That's incredible.
to pretend to have a girlfriend. You see, AI doesn't just exist in some theoretical space. It has to be trained on trillions of gigabytes of data, and that data has to be stored in a physical location. To power this, it requires an absurd amount of electricity, which generates an absurd amount of heat, which then requires an absurd amount of water to cool off. Most of these buildings use over 1 million gallons per day, roughly the equivalent of 10,000 people. This would be even more problematic if they were being built in areas where water is extremely scarce. So we should be good as long as we don't build a bunch of them in like the middle of the desert. Whoops. But to be fair, they are extremely efficient about it. They don't just use the water, they also poison it. Every part of this process is wasteful and destructive, and this is only the beginning. AI is still a relatively new phenomenon, so we're only just starting to see the effects of this. But the Department of Energy projects that the percentage of electricity used by data centers could nearly triple in just the next 3 years. And who gets to pay for it? We do. It's hard for me to accurately express how infuriating this is. The giant buildings that power this stupid fucking technology are being subsidized by people who just happen to live near them. Oh, but hold on, because they're technically contributing to the operating costs. So does that mean that they get to share in the eventual profits? No, of course not. They're more like involuntary investors doing it for free. Or really,
So what he's describing is a concept known as a externality. This is a core economics 201 concept, chat. And this is a concept that conservatives don't want you to know about, right? What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? It may include hallucinated information, copyright violations, and claims not verified and cited sources, original research, or fictitious references. What the fuck is this? What the absolute fuck is this? I think this is being proactive about users submitting generated content. I'm in shock. I'm actually kind of depressed. I'm actually kind of depressed. Can we just say something? Like, the idea of Wikipedia was such a socialist and utopic idea that we would just have people come together and do it for the love of the game for free. It would be available for free. Now, obviously, a Wikipedia article is not the same thing as being educated in a thing, but it was, at least it was an attempt to derive a encyclopedic level of knowledge on a whole bunch of topics. The ambition of this and the idea behind it, and almost everyone I've ever met has used Wikipedia before. It's a vestigiality of the old internet, Mike. It's all going, yeah, this is the original internet. This is the internet that I grew up with, where people would make websites for a purpose. And Wikipedia, they can't let it exist anymore. They have to capture it, just like they capture everything. We have got to kill off these tendencies in our society. We have to destroy the personalities behind our desire for these type of things. In economics, an externality is a cost or benefit to an uninvolved third party that arises as an effect of another party's activity. I'll give you an example of an externality, chat. When I burn a fire and it puts smoke in your face, I bought the firewood from some firewood cutter. I burn it and the smoke flies in your face, makes you cough. That's an externality. See, you paid a cost for the activity that I paid some other person for. Or another example, here you go. Look at this. This looks like AI to me. Am I insane? I think it's the color. Like, the color looks like AI to me. Maybe I'm just starting to hallucinate AI, that everything's AI now. Like everyone else.
Kept awake at night by the deafening hum endlessly emitting from the factory shoved into the backyard of their homes that have now surely plummeted in value as a result. But hey, at least they're doing all of this to make a product that hopes to replace 80% of humanity. It's not enough that these people already own everything they could ever want. They could so easily afford to pay for these things without even noticing that that money is gone. But why would they do that when they could simply have poor people pay for it instead? Because nothing will ever be enough for them. You know, when a rich person makes some shady deal to screw over the working class, people will joke that they just need that money to buy their 4th yacht. And like, I don't even think it's that. They could buy 1,000 yachts and still not run out of money. They don't want to spend their wealth. They just want it to get bigger. It's the same obsession with seeing number go up that keeps me addicted to old school RuneScape, except the only life that's ruining is my own. What they have is a disease. They have been scourged with the blight of insatiable greed, cursed to an endless pursuit of wealth that will never bring them true happiness. I would almost feel bad for them if they weren't actively destroying the world in the process. One of the most frustrating things about this problem is that if you even try to suggest that maybe these guys should just have a little bit less money, like you guys can still be rich, whatever, just turn it down a notch because you're kind of...
By the way, chat, I'm sorry, guys. I know that sounds reasonable to you. When you were at the birthday party and you tried to take your 4th piece of cake, and your mom slapped you on the wrist and she said, "No, Tommy hasn't had a piece yet. You've had enough." And you felt ashamed and you walked away, and Tommy was able to get his first piece of cake. They don't think like that. They don't think like that. These people don't need to just have a little bit less. They need to be in mental hospitals. They need residential psychiatric treatment for life. The first time you would look at a child dying and go, well, that would make my stock go up 0.1%. You need to be institutionalized for life. If that sounds like a radical position to you, it is. It is radical. I'm embracing the radical term. A radical is somebody who believes we need massive change in our society and in our culture. I'm a radical. I don't believe that the way that our society, our world, our country is going is on the right track. If you agree with me, then you're a radical too. You've been radicalized. That's all radical means. It just means I want big change because the way things are going is fucked up. And I think that if you're not radicalized right now, I have to ask you why. What about the world as it is to you is so precious that you want to hold on to? What about Elon Musk being the richest man in the world, even though none of his companies are actually delivering on anything concrete? It's all overvalued speculation on Wall Street. Makes sense to you. Do I prefer revolution or revision? I prefer socialism. We don't live in a world where I have the luxury of 8 different scenic paths to socialism. I take whatever path I can carve out of the fucking swamp. All I know is my machete is sharp and I'm ready to hack down some brush. The path forward, nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody has the answer. Or if they do, it hasn't been tested. It hasn't been proven. So when people ask me, do you believe in X or Y? The answer is yes. Whatever takes a scrap of wealth from the rich and returns it to the hands of the worker is what I support. Whether it's a tax, whether it's total social and political transformation, yes. You're never gonna see me say no. You never saw me say get off the streets. You never saw me saying, oh, that's bad optics about ACAB or any of this other thing. I never said that. I never will. I don't punch left. But what I also do is I recognize reality. I'm not trapped in a fantasy. I think I'm too old. What do you mean? What I mean is the idea of turning my nose up of actually existing movements and go, what we really need is revolution, and then doing nothing to achieve that. There's a certain type of person who understands that revolution is not something that we can catalyze alone from personalities, and then uses that as an excuse to denigrate any actually existing movement as not good enough for them. That's what I push back against. A lot of people confuse me with somebody who thinks that we need to wait for like some sort of better class of X, Y, and Z to arise spontaneously. It's not going to.
I'm making shit.
A lot of people see me not punching left and they think that means that I have incredibly dumb takes about, Mamdani. And it's like, no, I don't punch at Mamdani because he's opening up the way. He's helping open up the way.
terrible for everybody else, you're treated like you're crazy. No, this is the American way. If you don't like it, then leave. And yet these ideas aren't radical. They're not even new. Most people who advocate for a more progressive tax system are only calling for a return to something that used to exist in this country. We just forgot about it. So I think it's important to do a little history lesson here. If you can believe it, there was a time where the working class in this country actually had it really good. And it was mostly because things got so bad during the Great Depression that the government was worried about the country collapsing. Thousands of banks had closed, millions of people lost their entire life savings, unemployment peaked at 25%. So in fear of a revolution happening, the government was like, all right, fine, we'll give you livable wages. Just please put that musket down. I don't like the way you're looking at me. So the New Deal was born, and with it came Social Security, better labor standards, the right to unionize, a national minimum wage, an 8-hour workday. And over the next 2 to 3 decades, America became the most prosperous country on earth. Productivity skyrocketed and wages rose with them. Extra profits weren't just redistributed to employees, but their employers were proud to do it. They would brag about how lucrative it was to work for them. Look, 37% of profits went to our employees last year because this is a team effort, and when we win, they win. In 1943, Johnson & Johnson puts out this mission statement that's like, here's our list of priorities in order. Customers number 1, we got to make good products. Employees number 2, everyone who works here needs to feel valued and respected. Our community, number 3, we all want to live in a better world, and as a company of our size, we feel like it's our responsibility to contribute to that however we can. And finally, all the way at the bottom, our shareholders can just have whatever's left. Of course, we need to make a profit to survive and grow, but that should just come naturally as a byproduct of focusing on these 3 tenets. Compared to modern corporate standards, this is all such a foreign concept that it almost sounds like it's coming from a fictional universe. But this actually happened. This was just America 70 years ago. Now, during
The thing about this moment, like the one thing about social democracy, and this is a problem, this is the reality that we have, is that we have people that are ultras who want to denigrate social democracy as really just the moderate wing of fascism, and it's really liberalism, and it didn't achieve socialism. And so they have an ideological interest in attacking that. And then you have an ideological interest of liberalism to distort it as if it's from their tradition. We didn't get those things because liberals did them. All right. We did them because socialists were seizing power and they carved them out of the asses of the capitalists. That's why. In some places, reaction was so severe that revolution occurred. In other places, socialist movements were able to win parliamentary seats and win power, usually because the countries that the states they took power were in flux because of major radical defeats, like, for example, in the Austrian Republic. Following World War I, the Social Democrats were able to implement a whole bunch of stuff because that was coming off of a catastrophic collapse of the existing powers that was imposed by a defeat in war and collapse of empire. The reality, so if you like the idea of X, Y, and Z, you know, social democratic reform, understand that that was a concession carved by an explicitly socialist project. I want to say this again. Social democracy and the concessions therein came from explicit socialists of a socialist project. They are not liberals, and they did not come from the liberal tradition. The liberal tradition has tried to absorb them as a reaction to other forms of socialist organization or governance being tried, right? But social democracy is not the product of liberal parties or centrist parties or anything like that. It is the hard-fought concessions of the left. So if you are like him and you want, you know, you're like, oh man, whatever happened to social democracy? The answer is socialism died. If you want to know why things got worse, it's because socialism was on the back foot. That's why it went away. And if you're like, well, why can't we get back to there? It's like, well, to get to there, you have to break the haughty power of capital, or at least bend it in our direction. Ultras are part of the group pushing for said concessions. You're misplacing your contention, Mike. No, I'm not. I just don't think you're aware of the state of argument. Zoran Mamdani, for example, trying to deliver free childcare to every resident of New York City. Do you understand how that is a profound social reality improvement for single mothers in New York? Do you understand how that will change the lives of literally millions of women and children if we had free childcare? Do you understand that? And so that is why it is absolutely important that we help achieve that. And I think one of the things is, like, remember, the people that are afraid of Zohran Mamdani are not just right-wingers and conservative. It's also the type of people that say that supporting him in the first place was pointless. They also have a stake in sabotaging it. Because if you're one of the people that said, it's Zohran Mamdani is a sellout and it's pointless, and it turns out that millions of lives are transformed because they get something like free, they get their rent frozen and they get free childcare, fundamentally transforms their lives in a way that would not have been possible without Zohran's win. That discredits the idea that Zohran was pointless, and it discredits the people that said it. So those people are just as dedicated to seeing his defeat and discreditization as the Republicans and as the right-wing Democrat. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what I'm trying to avoid you falling into that trap. I don't want to see you fall into that trap. You could say Zohran Mamdani is way to your right. That's my position. Zohran Mamdani is way to my right. However, I recognize that if he implements his 3 core promises, it will be transformational in the lives of millions. And that, to me, is worth doing or trying to do. And I feel like if he were to succeed, it would enhance the credibility of the socialist movement, not damage it. And that is those are the reasons. Those are the core fundamental reasons why I support Zohran and other people, socialists who are, or democratic socialists or social democrats, who I am far to the left of. That is the most important fundamental argument that we're having. Some people think those things are not worth fighting for, or they analogize them to liberals, saying that we're doing lesser of two evilism or some shit. The fundamental difference that separates Zohran Mamdani from Kamala Harris is he is owning the label of pro-Palestinian socialist, and Kamala is not. And to me, those are my fundamental core political assertions. Socialism is good. Pro-Palestinianism is necessary and good. Kamala Harris is not pushing my core. And I feel like this, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't agree with me on this, I really need you to make an argument that is smart. And I've yet to see it. It's weird to see people who understand that doing mutual aid demonstrates that mutual aid is helpful and raises the profile of socialism not understand that government provided childcare could be seen similarly. Yes, the same people who say that the Black Panther Party's free breakfasts or an integral part of the growth of their movement think that all children getting free breakfast is somehow revisionism. Like, that's silly. And I'm not discrediting the Black Panther Party. I'm saying what they did was based. I want all children to get it.
This time, what do you think the tax rate was on the wealthiest Americans? For reference, in 2025, the highest income tax bracket is supposed to be around 24%, but because of how many ways there are to circumvent the rules, it often ends up being as little as 3%. For someone like Elon Musk, who doesn't take a salary from Tesla and instead just owns a large percentage of its stock, as long as he doesn't sell any of that stock, then technically there's no income to tax him on. Now, he can still leverage the value of those stocks to make purchases, you know, like how money works, but it's still not taxable because of the rules. This is how people like him and Jeff Bezos can be, in terms of net worth, two of the richest people on the planet, and in some years pay $0 in taxes. In the middle of the 20th century, the tax rate on the ultra wealthy was not 3% or 20% or even 50%. It was between 70 and 94%. It honestly sounds crazy, but even a lot of the people being taxed understood that it was necessary for society to continue to exist. And having a strong middle class was a crucial investment into the future of the country. But I don't know, man, I just think it's kind of interesting that during what's referred to as the golden age of capitalism, the government did a bunch of socialism. During the period of time that birthed the idea of the American dream, the government was taxing the absolute shit out of the richest Americans and using that money to provide jobs and welfare programs for everybody else. A single income household working a regular ass job could afford to start a family, buy a house, send their kids to college, and retire at a reasonable age. No wonder people who grew up then gush about capitalism the way they do, because for them, it was great. But at this point, it is disingenuous to use that time period as the example for why capitalism works, because that version of it stopped existing a long time ago. The generation of people who started as beneficiaries of a more equitable system changed the rules once the roles were reversed and they had the power. So what the hell happened? Everything was going great. What changed? Well, there were a lot of things, obviously, but one of the first big dominoes was the US's involvement in the Vietnam War, which was expensive and deadly, but to be fair, also accomplished.
Jeffries praises the Trump pardon. I really don't know what else to say. House Democratic leader tells CNN that the charges against Henry Cuellar and his wife were very thin. That President Trump's pardon of the couple was the right outcome. Do you agree that Zoran getting behind Jeffries is the biggest L so far? I think every single day it proves that I was right and he was wrong. I'm sorry. Like, who am I to compare myself to Zoran Mamdani? Well, let me just say, he was totally wrong. Jeffries has been our enemy since day one, and he's not only our enemy, he's actually effective at helping the Republicans and immediately tripping up any kind of energy against Trump. Right now, and this is something that needs to be understood, stop trying to pick and choose what things that Trump is doing that are good and bad. Trump is bad is the only thing we should be saying. Like, I'm sorry, chat, but the guy's trying to get us into a war with Venezuela. He supports Israel's genocide. He's fucking worthless. He's doing a fucking mass deportations. Stop trying to pick and choose how he's good or bad. He's bad. Trump is bad, period. It's because people in Jeffries district love him. No, they fucking don't. No, they fucking don't. They're Democrats in a deep Democratic district, and he has high name recognition. That's it. They don't fucking love it. No, they fucking don't. Nonsense.
Nothing. And this had long-term ramifications. America had been diverting so much money away from manufacturing. And
that's liberal copium as to why we should primary Hakeem. Basically what happened, I'm going to explain it to you in a way that doesn't insult everybody's intelligence. Hakeem Jeffries is beatable, but he would be hard to beat because he would have tens of millions of dollars from Wall Street, and it would create a severe rupture in the Democratic Party that would have to be fought bitterly in New York, thereby derailing Zoran's entire mayoral administration into a civil war with Hakeem Jeffries and Wall Street. That's why they didn't do it. And Hakeem Jeffries, and probably in backroom fucking conversation, said, hey, I'll help you get free childcare. I'll help you on a couple of these issues, and you'll look successful as long as you promise not to come after me. That's what happened. I don't like you. You don't like me, but I'll help you get a couple of these things across the finish line as long as you promise not to come after me. That was a fucking dumb promise. That was stupid. The reason why is these people are liars. The only kind of transaction you could do has to be an instantaneous transaction, meaning exchange value for value at the moment of the deal. If you're not exchanging value for value, you have been scammed. Hakeem Jeffries asked Zoran Mamdani to pay up front for something he's going to deliver in the future. You got fucking scammed. This is the Hamburglar saying, I promised to pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. You give him the hamburger on Tuesday. The Hamburglar is at a different McDonald's. Okay? Oh, is that Wimpy? I don't know the McDonald's fucking people, but you get my point. The Hamburglar just gets a devious lick. What the fuck is the Hamburglar? It doesn't matter. These are really old boomer characters from McDonald's. And as I said before, a lot of the right wing of the DSA wants to be Democratic political consultants. Like, let's just be honest. Let's just be honest. I don't want to be too uncomradely, but there are opportunists in our midst. Okay? And it is what it is. I don't like to excessively throw that term around, but when the shoe fits. I'm not like everybody who, the moment somebody disagrees with me, I'm like, opportunist, opportunist, opportunist. But if you're like, no, Hakeem Jeffries is so unbeatable, you're a grifter. You're an absolute grifter. He is a charismatic void. He sucks. He's corrupt as fuck. And he's a bad campaigner. Like, the idea that he can win and he's super popular is just nonsense. Besides having terrible politics, he's a void of charisma and the worst communicator of his generation. I mean, I agree with you. The hyperbole fits. I mean, there are people that are worse, like if we're being very, very accurate, but like he's dog shit.
Towards defense, that it opened
you don't
the
like
door.
DSA? I love DSA, but there are right-wing parts of the DSA that there are people way too far to the right in DSA. That does exist. That does exist. There are people that are basically just Democrats who wear DSA as a fucking like radical shirt, but they don't really believe in anything. Like, sorry, there are people like that.
Or for other growing industrialized countries to surpass more and more products were becoming cheaper to import than they were.
Like, this is just, guys, 51% unfavorable Hakeem Jeffries, but he's super popular in his district. No, come on. 50% unfavorable with 18 to 34-year-olds. Like, come on. Mike is saying Jeffries will never pay the debt back. Exactly. You paid first. You gave him a pass. How are you going to get that back? What leverage? You gave him what he wanted, which is not to primary him. Now, how are you ensuring he gives anything back to you? What was his down payment? The most tepid endorsement 2 days before the election? How did Hakeem Jeffries adopt the success of Zohran Mamdani? There was a council district where Mamdani on the WFP line ended up second in Che Ose's congressional district, council district 36. Cuomo finished a point behind the WFP line. That's crazy. That's Working Families Party. I still think it concentrating on Zohran is a mistake. AOC likely has enough numbers to block him from leader. Oh, of course. The thing is, they don't think it's a worthwhile fight. I'll tell you exactly what the calculation is. The calculation is the best way to take over the Democratic Party is through an AOC presidential campaign. And the best way to win the AOC presidential campaign is for AOC to be seen as a good Democrat among Democratic normies and force them to attack her. That's basically what they're going to do. What they're going to try to do is they want AOC to set herself up as a good Democrat to Democratic normie and MSNBC watchers, keep her favorability high among Democrats, and then when we get into the presidential election, force right-wing Democrats to attack her first. And then among Democratic normies, they'll see that, and then AOC will be in the position of victim of attacks, and then she can respond. That's what they're trying to set up. It's a multi-year fucking program that they're trying to set up. That is what they're doing. And it's very unsatisfying because we want fighting to happen now. I don't believe they're naive enough to believe that AOC and Zohran are going to be treated fairly by the centrist Dems. They know they're not going to be. But what they realize is the voters, and this is where they're acting like politicians. In order for them to win, they need to be optically seen as the good guys. If they act like me, if they're overly aggressive, if they're angry, if they're leaning forward, that's going to turn off a lot of wine moms. Why are you attacking Democrats and not Trump? We have to defeat Trump. That's what they're worried will happen. So what they want to do is set themselves up, be fighters against Trump, fighters against the excesses of the right, selectively target unpopular centrist Democrats, and then when AOC launches her presidential campaign, organize around AOC's presidential campaign, and then when centrists attack AOC, then they will be able to fight the Democratic Party civil war. But they will have positioned themselves as the innocent victim of ideological attacks from the right wing of the party. That's what they're trying to set up. And you could say this is a dumb idea. You could say that they're damaging their own credibility by playing along with the Democratic Party. You could say all of that. I hear that. I don't know if this is going to work. This is what they've done. This is what they're going to do. And personally, if you think that AOC would be a bad candidate for the Democrats, you're a fucking dumbass. And I think you're a piece of shit, to be honest. Unless you have somebody who's even further to her left that would be better. That's the only criticism I'm willing to listen to. If you're like, no, we need to support Andy Bashir, or we need to support Gavin Newsom, you're a fucking dummy. Okay? Unless you're positioning somebody further to the left of AOC as a choice, and you have a good argument for why they're better, you're a fucking dumbass. I hope we find someone better we don't foresee yet. It's her turn, HillDog28. Let's go. I mean, if you don't understand the difference between AOC and Hillary Clinton, I think you should commit the ancient Japanese traditions that I so support and foment, I think one of the things is like, there's a lot of people that are intellectually lazy and they say stupid shit for attention. And it's getting embarrassing for everybody. I think one of the problems is I'm having conversations before AOC is running for office and there's a bunch of energy sweeping around her and people are all going to go along with the crowd. So like I'm way ahead of the curve. All right. I know the way people are going to be acting in a year from now. I can see where all you people are going to be acting a year from now. Because when the energy's there and the big crowds are there, and the based posts and campaign ads are hitting and everybody's like rallying around her, and then you're all going to be saying what I'm saying now. Everybody will make their rationalizations. I've already made them. I know where we are going to go. Now I leave open the possibility that someone better will emerge, and I will, if somebody better emerges, I'll obviously support somebody better. But right now, she is it. And people are going to be making these fucking, if you're the type of person who's going to try to go down with the ship that AOC actually sucks, it's going to be a bad couple years for you. I can tell you that. The media has been pushing a woman can't win narrative because of her. That doesn't, I mean, if you buy into that, you're dumber than dirt, but a lot of people do buy into dumb shit like that. The only candidates I consider over AOC are JB Pritzker and Rashida Tlaib. AOC is better than JB Pritzker by a mile. AOC is better than JB Pritzker by a quadrillion miles. And Rashida Tlaib, I don't think has any intent to run. But if she did, I would be excited for her. And she doesn't have the name recognition. Also, let's just be completely forthright. AOC is more popular than her because of intangibles of charisma that are not necessarily Rashida's fault. Okay? Like, it is what it is. It is what it is. I know where people who go against AOC tend to run towards. They run towards, I just want Americans to suffer, a naive ahistorical viewpoint. America, I mean, first of all, that's just weird. That's an evil position. I didn't want Japanese citizens to suffer, right? Like, I don't support the nuking of Japan. Even though Japan was one of the most evil empires in history, I don't support Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And therefore I don't support the destruction of America. The average American the average American already suffers. The average American already can't make ends meet. Well, what do you want from them? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And the ultra wealthy who profit from America's empire, they're not going to suffer because Donald Trump is president. It's just nonsense. AOC gets what? What is somebody saying? Hold on. AOC will have a wide range of haters, ultra, super, anti-woke lefties, and very weird radlibs. It doesn't matter. Those people are completely irrelevant. Also, AOC is the most resistant to radlibs. The problem is, like, if it's like somebody attacking me, they'll be like, Mike is a white cis man, and he's straight. And they'll do a bunch of identity politics, like, Mike is problematic. He's a little bit misogynistic. But they can't do that to AOC. They did it to Bernie, right? They called them Bernie bros, right? Bernie Sanders, he's kind of racist. He's from Vermont. That's such a white state. Well, she's from the fucking Bronx. She's completely resistant to any of the radlib bullshit. That's the other reason why she's a good choice. Is the way that we lose is not the general election. The way that we lose is the fucking primary. If the left is going to succeed in America, the person has to be able to make it through the Democratic primary. And the way that we lose the Democratic primary is because that's the only place woke bullshit still works. So we need to have a candidate who's going to be radlib proof as much as possible, but who is not an annoying radlib in regular life. That's the thing that actually concerns me about AOC. I think AOC would manage to avoid the radlib bullshit, but what concerns me is that she would be too annoying in the general. But I don't care about that. I think she would make the right calls in the general election. I think she would not lean into annoying identity politics in the general election. And also who she is the message. She doesn't have to harp about woke bullshit because she is a Latina woman. So she doesn't have to say that shit because she's already that. Whereas a white leftist man would have to be like, I'm so woke and I love this, blah, blah, blah. And that would be annoying. The difference between Kamala and AOC is Kamala doesn't believe in anything and doesn't stand for anything and doesn't actually support anything. So she's a disgusting machine politician, whereas AOC is an outsider politician. It's a different I mean, Larry Summers. Oh my God, there's a story I heard the other day about Larry Summers talking to fuck. Where did I hear it? Fuck. Maybe I'll explain it. The story of what maybe it was Chapo. I don't know, but basically I heard a story where Larry Summers was talking to Yanis Varoufakis about the two types of people are insiders and outsiders. Was that on fucking Chapo? Is there any Chapo listeners? Or was that QAnon? I don't remember where I heard it. But this, well, we should listen to it because it basically explains, like, if you cannot divine the difference between AOC and, like, if you think AOC is the same as, like, Obama, your political analysis is so flawed and you are bad at this. Like, you are actually bad at this. Mike, this might be a crazy thing to think about. Does Plattner fit in this discussion? Basically, my position of Plattner is that of the choices that are currently on offer, he has the best policies. That's my position on Plattner. He doesn't really vibe with me for a variety of reasons, but like he clearly, him losing would be bad compared to like Janet Mills winning. Like Janet Mills is a Zionist who wants to uphold the filibuster. That is far worse for the left on policies. What are his policies? He's anti-Israel. He's pro-Medicare for all, etc., etc., etc. There are two kinds of politicians, he said. Power is, of course, a professional aphrodisiac. Larry Summers knows this all too well. And one fascinating anecdote from Yanis Varoufakis' doorstop of a memoir, he recounted Summers trying to school him up in the ways of Washington. There are two kinds of politicians, he said, insiders and outsiders. The outsiders prioritize their freedom to speak their version of the truth. The price of their freedom is that they are ignored by the insiders who make the important decisions. The insiders, for their part, follow a sacrosanct rule: never turn against another insider and never talk to outsiders about what insiders say or do. Their reward: access to inside information and a chance, though no guarantee, of influencing powerful people and outcomes. With that, Summers arrived at his question. So, Yanis, which of the two are you? Now, according to what Yanis Varoufakis said, that he's an outsider, basically. That was his answer. His answer is, I'm an outsider, but I'm willing to be ashamed to help Greece. He said that. And Larry Summers said, fair enough. This is, if you don't know what this is referencing to, basically Greece was being forced to go bankrupt and like destroy their country. And a left-wing party, when it was elected into power, to basically say, fuck you to Germany. And Yanis Varoufakis was the finance minister who was trying to do that. And then basically the entire world turned on Greece to try to prevent the left from successfully breaking out of the debt trap.
To produce. This led to factories getting shut down, unemployment starting to creep back up. A recession hits, and we're now facing a pivotal fork in the road in the late 70s. Either we could go back to what worked in the past, prioritize the working class, reinvest into our own infrastructure, try to help lift people out of poverty they've fallen into through no fault of their own, or we say, fuck the government. We don't owe you shit. We're stupid, isn't that right? I don't even know my own name. Exactly. The deal is you pay taxes and we don't do anything. And you like that, right? They like that? Sounds good to me. The prevailing philosophy throughout the 80s became trickle-down economics. The logic being, oh man, these rich people are really handcuffed. You know, I bet if we lowered the corporate tax rate from 70 all the way to eventually 28%, then companies will use all that extra money to pay their employees more. I mean, if there's one thing we know about rich people, is that they're always looking out for the little guy. Now, for some reason, this hasn't worked out yet, but it's only been 55 years, so the jury's still out.
I think she's the best candidate, but we gotta say her international politics are dog shit. God damn, dude. I wish I was like to be a confident chatter. To be a confident chatter. One of the things that's so funny about these people is like the reason why I broke with Bad and Panada is he spread a lie that AOC supported the Bolivian coup against the movement towards socialism, and in reality she was the first major world leader to call it a coup that wasn't from Bolivia. So not only is it not true that she supported the Bolivian coup, it's actually the complete opposite. And Bad and Panada was spreading the idea that she supported the coup because some right-wingers like got a selfie with AOC and she didn't know who they were. And they posted like, aha, AOC supports us. And it was a total lie. And Bad Panada spread that lie intentionally, knowing it was a lie. I think if you do that, you're a scumbag. I think it especially on a position that AOC was one of the first people to speak out against the Bolivian coup. Like, that is fucking insane. And so you have chatters like that saying she is bad on foreign policy. And it's like, she calls it a genocide in Gaza. She was against the Bolivian coup. She's anti-war in Venezuela. She supported the Afghanistan pullout. What the fuck are you talking about? It's like, what if she's not the best American politician on foreign policy, she's in the top 3. Are American politicians good on foreign policy? No. But if it's like person who could plausibly be president of the United States of America, she's the best on foreign policy. So if your point is that American politicians are not great on foreign policy, I agree with you. But I don't know. Do you not see we're about to invade Venezuela? You know, you'd think if you lived in Latin America, you would be more concerned about the Venezuelan invasion being done by Donald Trump, right? Like, Bad Panada said he wants Trump to be elected to punish the first world. But it seems like the people that are in the most risk of being punished are in Gaza and Venezuela, and immigrants to America who have no legal status. So it seems like the plan of helping Trump in order to punish Americans is not really working. Seems like it's punishing the global South more.
That part of the reason why companies in the 40s and 50s were so generous with their extra profits was because the tax rate was so high. I mean, think about it. If you're faced with a decision,
the same ball as Bernie if it comes to the Palestinian genocide, no. She called it a genocide, I think something like a year before or 6 months before Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders didn't say it till very late.
Between giving a huge chunk of money to the government or redistributing it back to the employees who helped you earn it in the first place, you would be much more likely to do the latter because it's an investment in your own company. It's a mutually beneficial exchange. Well-compensated workers are proven to be more loyal and more productive, and those are two things that you want. Now, there were other factors as well, loosening a lot of anti-monopoly regulations, the legalization.
Still think going on stage at the DNC and saying we're working tirelessly on a ceasefire is the worst thing she has done, and I don't know if she just lied or is that dumb. Curious what you're taking us on that. As I said at the time, it's wrong. It's not true. And I believed she was lied to, but I also believe she has to be smarter than that. And I think that was a major mistake. And I think supporting Biden in general was a major mistake. But if you want to know my personal take is AOC looked at Bernie Sanders' defeat and said the reason why Bernie Sanders was defeated because of a few things. One, Bernie Sanders called for a primary of Barack Obama in 2012. That was used infinitely in black communities against him in both of his presidential runs. Basically, he was seen as not a real Democrat and hated Barack Obama, right? And so that was a major impediment to his inroads in black communities. His centrists came out of the woodwork and be like, he hated Obama. And so I feel like they're fighting the last war, which is, I don't want to be demonized in the future by being seen as too Democrat while we're fighting Trump. Personally, think she should have been quieter. Those takes were bad. The takes were bad. Joe Biden was not on her side. And I think that naivete was incredibly damaging. She refused to call it a genocide while accosted by protesters at a movie theater. Actually, she did call it a genocide. They edited that. They were Trotskyists who were lying, and you got tricked by an edited video. Sorry. There is a group of Trotskyist wreckers in New York City that continually make fake videos about AOC. Sorry. This was like describing the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza as genocide. Progressive Congressman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has called on the United States to suspend weapon transfers to Israel. In a passionate speech on the floor of the House of Representatives on Friday, Ocasio-Cortez condemned the Israeli blockade of Gaza, which the United Nations says has put the territory on the verge of famine. This was in March of 2024. So a long time ago. Ocasio-Cortez on confrontation with protesters at a theater. It's fucked up. Ocasio-Cortez has repeatedly criticized the war, but protesters filming her accused her of not calling the war in Gaza a genocide. You refuse to call it a genocide. I need to understand what one of the protesters says in the video. I need to understand that's not okay. When a protester shot back that it's not okay, there's a genocide happening and you're not actively against it. New York Democrats said they were lying. The protesters followed her down an escalator and out of the doors of the theater, still accusing her of refusing to call the Israeli attacks in Gaza a genocide. As she exited the building, the protesters continued to follow her down the street. Video then cut to Ocasio-Cortez turning the camera and accusing the protesters of planning to edit the video and make it look like she said something she did not. If you're going to cut this, you're going to clip this, and it's so completely out of context. I already said that it was. And y'all are just going to pretend that it wasn't over and over again. Ocasio-Cortez is a video referring to calling Gaza a genocide. It's fucked up, man. You're not helping your people. You're not helping them. You're not helping them, she said. She said in an appearance on NBC's Meet the Press in January that the accusations that President Biden is enabling genocide in Gaza amidst the Israel-Hamas war demonstrate the mass humanity that Gazans are facing. So, like, come on, man. Like, come on. It's like, this is March 2024. What are we saying here? It's now December 2025. What are we doing? This is almost 2 years ago. Like, she's been calling it a genocide for almost 2 years. Mass humanity is a genocide. I just showed you a speech she did on the floor in March calling it a genocide. What more do you want from me in 2024? So she said it 2 years ago. She's been calling it a genocide for over 2 years. What more are you trying to say? I called it a genocide in October of 2023. Now what? On October 7th, I said that Palestinians had the right to resist occupation. What more do you want? Did you say that on October 7th? Where's your October 7th post show me your October 7th post. I believed it before you. Now what? I'm better than you. Now what? And by the way, I have many criticisms of AOC. In fact, I criticized her harshly for trying to make some distinction between offensive and defensive weapons. And I literally yelled at her over that dumb distinction. I thought that was a terrible post and a terrible position. I have criticized AOC time and time again. You don't need to lie about her. Why don't you just focus on the shit she's actually wrong about? Lying on her is embarrassing for you.
Buybacks, but this dramatically lower tax rate is a big reason why the 80s serves as the dividing line on just about every economic graph you could look at. This was the beginning of a long and continuous transfer of wealth from the working class to the top 1%. And while it would be very easy to just blame all of this on then President Reagan, that would only be mostly true. Sure, this new approach opened the door for more exploitation and greed, but you still needed a few scumbags willing to go through that door for the evolution to be complete. And nobody sprinted through it faster than one man. The real-life cartoon villain who designed the blueprint that most modern CEOs are still following to this day. His name was Jack Welch, and he's often referred to as the man who broke capitalism. During his tenure as CEO of General Electric, he turned the once quintessential American company that reshaped people's lives and supplied hundreds of thousands of high-paying jobs all across the country into a worthless carcass and a joke of a corporation, all while he became one of the richest people on the planet. In the century before Jack Welch took the reins, GE invented things like X-ray machines, jet engines, TVs, radios, and just about any kitchen appliance you can think of. In the 1980s, Jack invented laying people off. That was his big idea. What if we just fire a bunch of people? And then we don't have to spend as much money. It seems so simple and obviously very commonplace today, but before Jack, companies were not doing this. It was almost seen as un-American to fire somebody unless you absolutely had to. But Jack didn't think like everybody else. He was a pioneer. He bravely instituted the rank and yank system, where every year the bottom 10% of employees would get laid off no matter what. Not because they all deserved to be fired, but just because they fell on the wrong side of a spreadsheet. What's that? You were 3 years away from retirement and now you no longer qualify for pension? Okay. Then die. And to be clear, the layoffs were also not because the company wasn't profitable. It very much was, but it just wasn't profitable enough. See, when you routinely shut down entire facilities, you uproot thousands of lives, you create a toxic and selfish work environment where loyalty is replaced with fear, and if you're a company with the size and influence that GE had at the time, you can almost single-handedly destroy any semblance of a middle class across all of America. But this number gets a little bit bigger. So it's kind of a fair trade. GE was at the forefront of this countrywide philosophical transition from an economy that cared about making things and rewarding the labor it took to do so, to an economy that only cared about shareholder value and would prioritize anything it could to make that number go up. But the thing about the stock market is it's mostly just about perception. As long as something seems to be growing in value, then people will be more likely to invest in it, which will in turn cause it to be more valuable, even if it shouldn't be. A lot of what Jack did during his time as CEO did not make the company better, but it did make it bigger. And in the eyes of Wall Street, that was all that mattered. I mean, come on, a business that relies on something boring like selling products can only grow so.
Did you talk about Ethan Klein yet? No. I probably will do that tomorrow, chat, because I want to make sure we have as many people here as possible when I do. I gotta be completely honest with you about, let me just make one very quick statement. It's very obvious that Casey Tron is completely innocent and there was no merit whatsoever to the lawsuit. But the thing about lawsuits are, let's say, for example, copyright has a $30,000 statutory infraction for copyright infringement and a $150,000 infraction for malicious infringement. So the thing is, defending that lawsuit could cost more than $150,000 and certainly more than $30,000. So if a rich person is willing to just burn money on a frivolous lawsuit where they lose money on net, but just so they can kind of harass you, you might, this is called, and this is lawsuit trolling. We see it all the time with patent trolls. Copyright law and intellectual property law in America gives people the right to file frivolous lawsuits that are very expensive to defend. So a lot of people make money by just filing frivolous lawsuits against people that are not interested in, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's very clear that Casey Tron was coerced because she is supporting disabled family members. And she is their primary breadwinner. And so instead of facing ruinous legal fees, she decided to accept a disgusting settlement offer. And if you watch the video, it's very clear that it's just an abuser abusing a victim. It's not a legitimate apology. It is something that was coerced. And nobody believes that's what, you know what I mean? Like, you could just look at it and be like, this is not what Casey believes. This is Casey doing something humiliating to protect her family. And that's kind of the essence of what a woman is, what a matriarch is, what a leader is like, she was willing to do that because she needed to protect her family. And she didn't let her ego get in front of the fact that she's being coerced by a bunch of rich incel misogynists. And unless she got financial support from outside sources, it didn't make sense. Paying $250,000 to defend a lawsuit that you don't have, like, even if she won, she may not have gotten her legal fees back. So, like, nobody who's not a psychotic abuser watches that video and think it makes Ethan Klein or AB look good, right? It's just, she was coerced because she loves someone that she takes care of, and she's a middle-class person. She can't afford copyright lawsuits. And there's a reason why he sued her for copyright and not defamation, chat. Because everything she's ever said about him is true. And so he needed to use a frivolous lawsuit in order to, because if he sued her for defamation, she would have won on slap. In other words, and here's another way to look at it, which is the correct way. Ethan Klein, for all his millions of dollars, couldn't defeat a single woman, middle-class woman, with disabled family members she's taken care of. He couldn't even defeat her. He settled. He had to settle. And if you want to know, like, he had to read 2 humiliating messages to Denims and to Kavanaugh. He had to delete dozens of hours of videos. Like, this guy, like, I don't understand why he thinks this is some sort of win. He has multiple videos of him having to humiliatingly capitulate, except he was actually in the wrong in those instances. He actually had the resources to fight those people. He was just in the wrong. I'm afraid this sets the precedent for bigger streamers who are pieces of shit to abuse smaller streamers. I mean, this is the American legal system. It's always been like this. That's why slap lawsuits exist. Because rich people used to sue people for criticizing them under defamation, under bullshit defamation charges. We've passed laws to make that possible. Ethan Klein found a loophole in the law where he could say, well, you know, they're criticizing my video, so I'm going to say they copyright infringed. And that's literally just a loophole in slap. They found a loophole to do a slap suit. That's what it is.
Democratic Congress.
He still won, sadly. No, he didn't. Nobody who's that's the thing. You have abuser mentality. You have disgusting debate pervert mentality. Nobody normal looks at that video and goes, oh man, Casey Tron lost. They think Ethan Klein is a disgusting rich scumbag. Nobody sees that video and goes, oh, wow, Ethan Klein is right. They go, oh, my God, is this legal? This was coerced. It's like putting a gun to someone's disabled family and going, say that you're a loser. If you wouldn't say you're a loser, that's fucked up. Your ego is more important than the lives and security of your family. Of course you should say that. He coerced them with homelessness. And if you know anything about Casey's family, you know how many vulnerable people have depended upon her and how many people's lives of her family that she saved and gotten out of the throes of addiction, gotten out of homelessness, gotten out of financial destitution. So I'm very happy that Casey Tron was able to escape this disgusting fucking rat piece of shit that nobody likes. And it's not going to be a win. It's not going to suddenly like cause people to flow back to Ethan Klein. They know exactly what he is. And this just confirms it to more and more people. And the thing that's really funny about this is I love it. And the reason why I love it is because Ethan Klein has now established if you watch his videos and he ever changes up on you, he might sue you. So even if you like Ethan Klein right now, even if you're allied with Ethan Klein, you better not watch his shit. You better not promote his shit, because if he changes up on you, he might sue you. So everybody is just gonna distance themselves from Ethan Klein, because it's just, especially if you're a smaller streamer, I ain't watching that shit. I ain't promoting that shit. This motherfucker can eat shit and die as far as I'm concerned. I'm confused. Wouldn't that make you a target? I mean, if he wants to just deal with my insurance companies, fine. Like my heirs and missions insurance company, my umbrella insurance company, I pay my $150 a month in umbrella insurance, and you know, you want to deal with my it'll cost me $150 a month to keep paying my premium. You could spend millions on lawsuits. Like, I'll keep paying my umbrella insurance and my errors and emissions insurance. I have a process of correcting error. Good luck. You know, like, good luck. I mean, you could deal with my insurance companies, and they're a big law firm. U.S. Jews, it was to garner sympathy. Casey publicly apologizes to Ethan and Gila as laws at Times of India. Don't link that fucking algorithmic shit in this channel. In fact, sit here for 5 minutes before you post AI slop crap here. And the difference is, like, I'm not a woman. He is a misogynist, okay? So, a misogynist, it is what it is. Greenwell's reply to the video was brain dead. I'd rather go bankrupt to be homeless than forced to read something like that. That said, nothing is scummier than some rich asshole like Ethan Klein using his wealth to fund lawsuits against random critics and enemies online. And like, here's the thing. I get what he's saying. I'd rather go bankrupt than homeless. But this is such privilege bullshit. You're like a millionaire, man. You're a millionaire, man. Like, shut the fuck up. You don't actually have people relying on you that you know what I mean? Like, come on. You've never actually been homeless. I personally think the fact that it's so over the top makes it so much less effective. That's why Ethan Klein is a low IQ individual. He's a dumb guy. If he had written a much more subtle and thoughtful statement, he would have looked better and she would have looked worse. But by the fact that he tried to make it so extreme, everybody looks at it and it's just like, this is a hostage video. And he just looks like a disgusting abuser, which he only is, to be clear, over the internet. And I want to say, this is an open invitation. If Ethan Klein ever wants to fight me one-on-one, I accept. I just want to say that. Like, open invitation to Ethan Klein. If he wants to do one-on-one against me, I accept. 100%. I'll do it right now. Like, you know what? Like, I'm out of shape, but I'll do it tomorrow. My only rule is no gloves. That's my only rule. Now, this is, as long as it's a sanctioned match, it's not a threat or anything. This is not a threat. I'm talking about a sanctioned, agreed upon, mutually agreed upon boxing match. I'm not saying this as any kind of threat. I'm not threatening Ethan in any way. I just mean, he said recently, did he say he could beat me up or something? I'm just saying that I accept. And by the way, I'm not doing an event. It will just be in a private ring. It's not an event. It's not for money. It's not for clout. It's just a private sparring match. between me and him. Anyway, that's my general take on that. And by the way, as far as if you donated to Casey Tron's GoFundMe, from what I understand, and this is something based on my experience. I don't have any direct knowledge of how the money was spent, but based on my experience going to law school and in the legal profession, there was basically no money left in the GoFundMe. Any statement about her giving him money from the GoFundMe is just a lie. There was basically nothing there. They went through a whole long pre-trial period of discovery and everything like that. There was no GoFundMe for her to give. And she has previously said she would only pay money out of her own pocket on any settlement money. So the idea that settlement money went to him is just not true. It's basically kind of a lie. It's a half truth, which is like, there was $5 left in the account. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is. We all need to support denims. Oh no. This apology, which I could only assume was somehow forced to extract a settlement, was painful to listen to. It is absurd. Okay, hold on. Let me comment the Casey Tron statement. Well, I might read this again tomorrow, chat, but I just want to read it now. This apology, which I could only assume was somehow forced to extract a settlement, was painful to listen to. Is it absurd and ironic that Ethan accuses Hassan of being a puppeteer while LARPing as a comic book villain in this way? While it's unfortunate that Ethan appears to have been able to exert control over her in this way, I'm happy that Casey Tron was given the opportunity to minimize the harm to her family, avoid the risk of losing her home, and move on from Ethan's lawsuit. Yeah, that's the other thing. Casey Tron has a house that her family lives in and depends upon, and she didn't want to put that at risk. So giving Ethan Klein this statement and some small amount of money to go away is a better outcome than dragging this out for years in court. Because unfortunately, unless some big benefactor comes in and wants to fund Casey Tron's lawsuit, then it doesn't make sense for her financially. It's imprudent for her to do anything but this. I want to make several things clear. My trial date is October 26, 2026, and I look forward to beating Ethan in court. While Casey and likely Frogan have caved to Ethan Klein, which is a decision that I doubt they made lightly, settling is not an option for me. By the way, I don't agree with Denims here saying that it's caving. It's not caving. Casey Tron and Frogan are much smaller streamers than Denims, and I know, Frogan averages 100 viewers or so, somewhere around that. And Casey Tron, while she is a successful streamer and averages between 500 and 1,000 viewers, she also has a lot of people that depend upon her and a lot more household expenses. She's not a young adult who is completely free from responsibilities. And so because she's caring for disabled family members, she doesn't have the ability to take these kind of risks. And so I don't like saying it's caving. It is minimizing legal risk is really what happened. They don't have the money. They don't have the they don't have the ability, and it's unwise. So I get what she's saying here, but I still think I don't agree with the way this was phrased. Hutch is glazing Ethan Klein. I mean, it doesn't matter. This is all you need to know, chat. This is all you need to know. This is all you need to know, my friend. Wah, 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 wah. Only 400,000 viewed in a year? Damn. Down 2,600 followers. But he streamed more? Oof. Yikes. That's a lot of streaming, by the way. 1,200 hours? That's a lot of streaming. Okay, what was I saying? All right. It is not an option for me because it would set a precedent that endangers the financial security of any streamer that creates reaction content. If you create content that involves commenting on videos on Twitch or enjoy consuming reaction content, you should be on my side. If you don't believe me, please read ahead and let me convince you. I watched and reacted to Ethan's highly anticipated content nuke shortly after it aired. Make no mistake, my coverage more than doubled Ethan's video in length. Ethan's video spanned roughly 104 minutes. I spent 230 minutes reacting to, critiquing, and commenting on his video and the content in it, during which I paused 210 times. This means I added 120% of the runtime in commentary, on average pausing every 30 seconds to add 36 seconds of commentary. This commentary length is substantially more than Asmongold, XQC, or any of the other streamers and YouTubers that watch the content nuke in full. As we know, Ethan decided not to sue Asmongold, XQC, or anyone other than the three of us. But he wouldn't sue them. They didn't intentionally try to deprive him of revenue, as you yourself said that you did. This notion is frivolous and is a fabrication. Ethan claims he is pursuing this claim against me because of some claimed malicious intent on my part. There are two statements that Ethan falsely claims demonstrate my intent, along with his conspiracy theory about collusion with Reddit moderators, none of whom I have ever communicated with. This is the funniest thing. Ethan Klein thinks, and this is the thing that's really funny, he thinks that there was some conspiracy theory with various Reddit moderators and all these streamers to like fuck him over, when in reality, no, people just don't like you, Ethan. We're not botting like Asmongold, okay? They just don't like you. The first statement in my response to a chat message, I read it out. We're relying on you to say live so we don't have to give the content nuke views. And then I replied, yeah, I'm going to stream it since he's confirmed it's going out today. I'm going to stream it. That's not her. Exactly. That's her just saying, I'm going to stream the video. That's not, I'm going to maliciously replace it. I hope this is self-evident, but it would be bizarre for me to take that opportunity to bring attention to this group of people and how they actually should watch his video on his channel. It isn't my place. I don't care. And making a big deal out of it would only encourage the zealotry that Ethan is upset about. I merely acknowledged that I was going to react to it and moved on. Drawing a broader narrative based on a chat message I did not write is delusional. This is Ethan Klein's entire case, by the way. The second statement is a throwaway shill comment I made after the video. Well, guys, if you enjoyed not giving any views to that terrible video, follow, subscribe, and throw a prime if you like my content. As an aside, this statement is factual. Almost certainly, if somebody watched my coverage, they had no interest in watching Ethan's video without the addition of critical commentary and never would have. Regardless, this statement does not characterize my intent. At most, you could say that it's a mean-spirited comment and poor taste. Making a joke like this is too far, and that Ethan Klein deserved more respect. We could agree to disagree. Queen shit. Queen shit. I humbly request that we could take this opportunity to question Ethan's framing of events and call a spade a spade. Ethan is bullying people who said things about him he did not like, and he could do that only because he has more money than them. Can you imagine Ethan Klein trying to bully anybody in real life? You guys remember when somebody said, say it's a genocide in Gaza, and he practically crawled on his hands and knees saying it was a genocide in Gaza? You guys remember that? Somebody came up to him on Rodeo Ave and said he was shopping for another overpriced wash dipped 50% in value as soon as he bought it. And it's so funny that Ethan can I just have an aside? It is really funny that Ethan Klein and AB invested so much in watches when they were at their absolute peak of overpriced value, and they've totally cratered since then. How much money do you think Ethan Klein is down from his watches? $500,000? Anyway, in doing so, at least in his lawsuit against me, he is setting a disastrous precedent for our corner of the internet. My hope is that others in our community with resources like Ethan's do not follow in his small footsteps. Please donate to my legal fund. Every penny donated has gone exclusively to court costs and fees and will go nowhere else. As stated earlier, my trial date is October 26, 2026, and I look forward to beating Ethan in court, ideally with your assistance. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And because you stole from him, you have a Homelander PFP. That is stealing. You've stolen that as intellectual property. Don't you know that? You just committed copyright infringement. You just committed copyright infringement with your fucking PFP. You committed copyright infringement with your banner. Conker's Bad Fur Day is copyrighted material. You just broke copyright. You don't know that? That throwaway shill comment sinks you. It doesn't sink you at all. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about, chat. If I watch a movie and I give critical critique of it, and then I say, you shouldn't watch this movie. I watched this movie, so you didn't have to. And I spoil the whole fucking thing. Doesn't matter, guys. It doesn't fucking matter. That's critique and commentary. The other thing is, Ethan Klein's content nuke is not a creative work with original characters. It is a commentary video on these very women. So what? He committed copyright infringement when he took their clips from stream and put it in his video? According to his logic, he did. You dumb fuck. So commenting on their commentary is not copyright. Nobody has ever thought that's copyright in the history of copyright law. Again, the only reason this happened is because he's willing to waste hundreds of thousands of dollars in lawsuits. He's literally just focused on trying to cause her harm. He wants to spend $500,000 on a copyright lawsuit where he recovers $30,000. That's the whole point. He's doing it to cause her financial harm. He's doing it because he's got extra money. And that's the end of it. And if you think that's a good way, if you like that idea, then you're a fucking dope. What was I gonna say? Where are we with his lawyer being wanted by a foreign country? His lawyer is probably a CIA agent. And one question I have for Ethan Klein, what I would love to know is anybody else paying for these lawsuits? That's something that I want to know. I mean, 150 upvotes. The most heavily bought it. He got his big Casey Trot apology. 3,000 upvotes. Nobody gives a shit. Look at this shit. I would do anything for girl with a microphone. Like this is their posts. 100 upvotes. It's so embarrassing to have that many bots. How many legitimate human beings do you think it is? Like 300? Ethan Klein sued Twitch streamer Casey Trot for copyright infringement because she reacted to his YouTube. After months of back and forth, they finally reached a settlement. As part of the settlement, she had to read his written apology. This feels wrong. 6,000 upvotes. Ethan Klein. So there's spam downvoting it with their bots. But I guess they don't have comment bots paid for because the first reply has 6,600 upvotes. This is so funny. I guess they didn't opt for the comment bots. Ethan Klein, who was recently exposed for having a secret Reddit account, which he role-played as a pedophile, thinks this will fix his tarnished image and make people like him again. All I see is a rich asshole who used his wealth to financially torture or bully a woman who just watched one of his YouTube videos because he's an insecure loser who needs to redirect his anger onto other victims. I'm sure that's going to get him back into public favor. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. This metaverse is a new frontier for trolling. One popular YouTuber named Ethan Klein streamed a session last month where he tried to be as sexually explicit as possible while surrounded by kids in the plaza. Damn, dude. Ethan Klein forced her to apologize to Asmongold, is a far-right streamer who participated in Holocaust denial, made jokes about Jewish people being expelled from 109 countries, called Palestinians inferior, and is working on collaborating with Nick Fuentes. Asmongold also uploaded reacts to Ethan Klein's videos that have received double the views of Ethan's original content. Make no mistake, Ethan does not care about anti-Semitism. He doesn't care about copyright. He's a pathetically bully who has a dangerous and deranged obsession with Hassan Piker. 4,000 upvotes. I guess you guys forgot to bot the comments. You just botted the original post, but you forgot to go into the comments and bot those too. It generally feels like she's being held at gunpoint. She was. She practically was. If she did settle with him, he was going to drag her through court to bankrupt her even more than she already was. She's essentially the sole caregiver for her family. I don't have the finances to fight this in court, even though she had a very good case. I don't fault her at all for settling. I'm frankly glad she could stop having to worry about this monster hanging over her shoulder. That's why our justice system is dog shit, because it's the wealthy get their way because it's expensive. And lawyers love it because guess what? They're getting paid. That's why all the propaganda about America and Brown versus Board of Education and Roe v. Wade and our legal system and jury of your peers, it's all bullshit. It is somebody has a lot more money, they're able to bully people. Hummus? You made homemade hummus? Goat cheese. You gave me block. Oh. Chat. Who here wants to do a BB tier list? Oh no. No. Oh no. No.
I'll go again.
Delicious hummus. I generally hope this gets some attention and backlash. This needs to be condemned by the entire online community. It communicated that people doing this to people is career suicide. Otherwise, we'll see more rich creators abusing smaller creators just for criticizing them. The justice system has been broken by the bourgeoisie to oppress the proletariat. If you have money, you can fight as many lawsuits as you want, even if they're completely frivolous. Ironically, Ethan got famous for fighting an equally as frivolous lawsuit over fair use. His obsession with bullying women is disturbing. Oh, bro, I've said it once and I'll say it again. I wish nothing but the worst for Ethan Klein. By the way, these are not my fans. These are not Hassan fans. These are just regular people on one of the biggest subreddits on Reddit. Ladies and gentlemen, Ethan Klein, you may have bullied Casey Tron with your lawyers, your settler lawyer and your fugitive lawyer who committed crimes in Indonesia. But guess what? Everyone still hates you. In fact, they hate you even more. And it's never going to improve. Never gonna get better. For those out of the loop, she's pretty much the sole caregiver of her family and facing being homeless because of Ethan Klein's frivolous lawsuit over his reaction to his content nuke. He didn't target XQC or anyone else who added equally the same amount of commentary. Arguably, Casey added more. He only targeted women connected to Assad Piker because he's obsessed with him, in my opinion. He nearly ruined this woman's life and pushed her to some really dark places because he's obsessed with a former coworker. The reaction on his podcast to her reading was disgusting, vile, and heinous. This has nothing to do with justice. That's to do with the fact that he wanted to bully some women. I'm invested because the woman in the video looks like she's being held at gunpoint and this is a hostage situation. Oh my God. Holy shit, dude. Honestly, Casey Tron won so hard. It's crazy how hard Casey Tron won. Because like if you analyze the videos, I think Casey probably reacted the least, which doesn't matter, by the way. Like if I play a clip of you and it's 30 minutes long and the conclusion of your video is right now the sky is green and I say, no, the sky is blue. Here's a picture of the sky. If it took you 30 minutes to make your dumb argument and it took me 10 seconds to defeat it, doesn't mean I didn't properly react to it or critique it, right? There is no like number of times paused. That doesn't matter. That's just a subjective argument that feels like it should matter, but that's not how it works in reality. So I happen to think that Casey Tron's legal argument was incredibly strong. She did the wise thing. And the thing is, by not pushing back on Ethan Klein's unhinged and unhealthy, psychotic statement and just saying, okay, I'll read it, she made him look even more evil. He's so fucking stupid. If he had written like, oh God, it's so funny to see a low IQ idiot wasting his money. Holy fucking, what a dumbass. Holy shit, what a dumb piece of shit. He didn't get any positive press at all. What a dumb fuck. Holy shit, that's so funny. Oh, that's so funny. Holy shit, that's amazing. That's some amazing shit right there. It's so funny that I could wait. I know I couldn't wait. I'm sorry. It's just so funny. Nobody likes it. Everybody, there's two reactions to it. The first reaction is this woman is being held at gunpoint. And the second reaction is I would never read this, but I know why she did it. And Ethan Klein is an evil monster. Nobody is looking at this and going, oh my God, you're right. Ethan Klein's copyright was violated and he's such a good ally of Palestine. Nobody's saying that. In fact, everybody, if you're pissed about what happened to Casey Tron, if you're legitimately pissed about what happened to Casey Tron, as I am, because she was vulnerable and he took advantage of that misogynistic fucking worm, then you need to help support Denims, because I know Denims really well. Denims and I are, and I will say this, she will never give in. She will never, ever, never, ever, ever, ever give in. She is going to fight him to the Supreme Court of the United States of America if she has to. So I want you to know she will never give in. And I mean, that's just the way it's going to go. Fox Boy is not just a popular subreddit. It's literally a sub to capture the state of social discourse on the internet. Basically, Ethan just exposed his ass. People in general find him disgusting and a freak. Everyone hates him, online and IRL. He has no fans. The type of people that are Ethan Klein fans are doing it from this. There's this, I need to learn how to describe it. Oh, by the way, chat, I'm working on a project because I've been thinking a lot about reaction in American and in 2025. I'm working on a major project. It's getting closer and closer. So stay tuned because it's going to be incredibly unbelievably based. And the only people that like Asmongold or like Ethan Klein or Destiny are this type of, like, I would say it's an underachiever nihilist. It's this like middle class or upper middle class fail son who probably has ADHD, certainly has narcissistic personality disorder, and always they're this kind of like failed, gifted, and talented kid who has like a pseudo intellectual streak and fell into the pit of nihilism because they're too lazy and stupid to even understand existentialism. And so the first time their extremely privileged life dealt them an L, they basically just fell into a nihilistic trap. And the reason they're able to do that is because they live in a cocoon of their family supporting them. So it's these downwardly mobile men who blame the world for the fact that they didn't live up to their potential. Very pathetic, to be a nihilist. I know her lawyers knew she would have won the case because every decent lawyer would know the lawsuit was meritless and malicious. I think the exact opposite, and it's obvious. Tom, there was no... all that happened is that she paid some piddly settlement. You understand how long it takes, how much it costs to take a copyright lawsuit to trial? You're talking about $100,000 plus. If somebody could pay you $10,000 to do an apology to not have to pay $100,000, then you do that unless the value of fighting your this is important to you. So basically, Ethan Klein just uses the money that he got from scamming his fans with his drop-shipped crap products. It's so funny that that Ethan Klein tries to be really anti-China when all of Teddy Fresh was built off of white, drop-shipped shit from China. You know what I mean? It's just like garbage, made with super high margins, imported from China, and flipped to his elder millennial fans. Ugh. Who became attached to a guy who did a mediocre stolen joke in 2014 or 2012 or whatever the fuck. When was Vape Nation? Like, how much can Ethan Klein steal from, like, Cheech and Chong? Every single stoner trope developed by Cheech and Chong, and pretend like he's some sort of creative. How long can you dine out on the fact that you went viral one video? Or Tim Heidecker, yeah. Did I see what Taylor Lorenz posted? All right, hold on. Dear Taylor, I saw your response to the TMZ article. We want to be charitable and may you seem confused about the facts. We would like to exercise grace and share the relevant information with you directly to avoid a public spat. That is our full joint declaration. It includes the emails from Skulls Unlimited executives stating on a record that it was a real skull, not a prop, and information on who sent them and how it was sent. Who ordered it? Who ordered it? Who ordered it, Ethan? Who ordered the skulls? Who is the person that... Why are you protecting the identity of who ordered it? Hey, Beatrosaurus Rex, thank you for the tier 3 for 6 months in advance. Hell yeah. I saw some crazy folks say Casey burned Hassan for the lawsuit. Did I lose something? No, she didn't burn Hassan. She just stated that there was no guarantee that anybody was going to ride to her rescue, so she made the decision to settle in order to protect her family. It's not that complicated, right? And that's just the truth of the matter. Like, I didn't dedicate tens of thousands of dollars to her. I mean, the reality is we all have to make these decisions for our families. I was behind her personally, professionally, and financially. If I gave her $1,000, that's a drop in the bucket, for the possible risk of taking a thing to trial. And then what if they win at trial and then Ethan Klein appeals? What, you now have to pay for an appellate lawsuit? You have to pay for an appellate decision? You know what I mean? Ethan directly ripped the Vape Nation idea from Blake Vapes.
Fuck you.
Las Vegas. Fuck, that's funny. There are losers who use their money to stall out those without that, which is why he would never take on someone with as much or more money than him. Well, of course. Honest question, do you think Hassan should have done more? I feel like all of us should have done more. That's kind of my feeling. I feel like all of us should have done more. Like everybody in the chat, myself included, I tried, I did things, but now I feel sad for her. You know what I mean? That's kind of my feeling, is I feel sad for her. And I think that a lot of people in this industry, I think a lot of it is bad luck. A lot of the people that rose to the top early on in Twitch were the people that were the most willing to abuse things like bots. And they kind of created acceptance of themselves because they successfully cheated their way to the top. And so they're just kind of there, even though like there's no Asmongold fan cams, right? Like nobody likes Asmongold. It's just he is a reality now. And so if you are only interested in like making money, you see a guy with a lot of views, then then you go there. Trainwrecks basically became a big streamer because he did nonstop copyright infringement streams at 3 a.m. during COVID, where you'd watch 10 episodes of a Gordon Ramsay show and in a pitch black room. You know what I mean? Like the entire, like kind of this whole right-wing kick ecosystem was built upon copyright infringement, like real copyright infringement. And nobody noticed, and they got big enough, right? You combine that with botting and the crypto gambling, you know, now that we had crypto gambling infiltrate our industry and ruin a lot of people's lives. All right, chat, let's finish this greed is destroying the world thing. Sorry for the aside. We're actually going to finish this video. I just want to say fundamentally, AC Tron won. Ethan Klein did not succeed in any substantive way. What a fucking loser. Wow, congratulations. A rich millionaire used his lawyer to bully someone. Wow. I can't believe a rich millionaire used his lawyer to bully someone.
Much. But a company that's constantly acquiring other companies simply has no ceiling. I mean, they could be.
I donated 200. If that is now, it's not. Guys, all the GoFundMe money, based on how much she had and based on what I, in my experience, would say, not at all based on anything Casey has told me, but based purely on my experience, I would say that there is literally, he didn't get any money from the GoFundMe. He didn't get any money. So I would not refund. I would not refund because that would just probably put, you know, take money out of her pocket at this point. I'm sure she paid it all to the lawyers.
Be worth infinity dollars when you think about it. So that's what they did. Over the next few decades, GE bought and sold hundreds of companies, and Jack was lauded for his brilliance because from the outside, everything seemed to be working. I mean, sure, they were becoming a bloated, nonsensical hodgepodge of unrelated businesses, eroding the company's infrastructure and prioritizing constant quarterly gains over any long-term sustainability, but no one gives a shit because the stock price has never been high. They've stumbled upon an infinite money glitch. They're just alchemizing value out of thin air. It gets to a point where the company founded by Thomas Edison doesn't even make their own light bulbs anymore. It's cheaper to get them somewhere else. Who cares? All they care about now is their ballooning financial division. They're issuing high interest loans. They become a massive holder of subprime mortgages, a famously good investment to make in the early 2000s. Literally,
Mike, since we let Casey down, can we do it? We're gonna make sure that Denims continues to raise money. Don't worry. And we have a full year to do it.
Whatever it took to juice the numbers, that's what they would do. After about 30 years of short-term decisions that received instant gratification.
Let me just say one more thing about Denims. There's nobody I know in the streaming space who has the dog in them more than Denims. The thing is, Denims seems like a person who is very, like, you know, good vibes, you know, likes to laugh, good energy, in a good mood. Fundamentally, the only person I would say that has more of a dog in them as far as you do not want to fuck with them is Vio. Okay? Like, you do not want to fuck with Vio. The only person, like, you know, Vio is number one of do not fuck with Vio. You will die. Okay? You will be killed. You know, the curse will be placed upon you no matter how powerful, like, the evil eye energy on you is like Sauron. Like, no. But after Vio's all powerful, and many people have experienced it recently. I'm not just saying this shit. Many people have experienced the power of an angry Vio, and it did not work out for them, okay? It did not work out for them. It was very bad for them. The only other person who I think has more of a dog as far as fighting against these evil pieces of shit is Denims. And the reason why I say that is Denims has a track record. She's been fighting against Destiny and these scumbags for 7 years. They've been harassing her for 7 fucking years. She has a proven track record, and this is the more important thing, she has the work ethic. She does not get tired. So good fucking luck. Good fucking luck. Denims is born and raised in New York. We're a very belligerent people. We like to fight more than anything else. Oh yeah. Also, she has a normal life. Okay, let's not go crazy. Let's not go crazy. Denims normal. Let's not go crazy. Okay, let's not go crazy.
From shareholders, but we're gradually making things worse for the company and its dwindling number of employees. GE had become severely overvalued. And it wasn't until right after Jack retired with his $400 million severance package where his successors stepped in and were like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. The time bomb Jack planted explodes in their faces, and GE spends the next 20 years slowly bleeding out. And at this point, they couldn't fall back on just like selling microwaves because they'd been cutting corners on production so long that that nobody wanted to buy any of their shitty garbage anymore. And of course, they had fallen way too far behind on innovation because they spent all their money on acquisitions instead of research. By 2021, the company that helped bring electricity to America was mercifully laid to rest, split into 3 separate institutions, none of which have come close to the dominance or influence that GE once had over the American economy. But here's the thing. You know who isn't affected at all by the cataclysmic downfall of General Electric? Jack Welch, because he's dead now. He already got to live his entire life of luxury and adoration without ever having to deal with the fallout caused by his actions. He took control of a building with a rock-solid foundation and just kept scrapping it for parts until the only thing left for it to do was collapse under its own weight. But by that point, he was long gone. I believe that this is the goal of those who now follow in his footsteps. They don't need to care about whether or not what they're doing is harmful or unsustainable. As long as the facade can be maintained long enough for them to reap the rewards, it doesn't matter that the ship is sinking behind them because they have a lifeboat. It doesn't matter that America spent the past 60 years exporting all its jobs and decimating the economies of small towns all across the country because a few hundred people responsible for those things already got to live long, happy lives. They don't give a shit.
This cutthroat corporate culture that Jack pioneered is still seen all around us today, and through the magic of time, it's only getting worse. CEOs make $1,000 every second, while their employees have to piss in water bottles so they don't fall behind. Routine layoffs, regardless of if a company is even struggling, are so normalized that it's just something we've come to expect. The stock market rules the world. Every major decision is dictated by this inherently volatile and short-sighted metric, and look at where that's gotten us. Millions without jobs, an enshittification epidemic, and a concentration of wealth that should be seen as a threat to humanity. Even while owning everything, billionaires live in fear of losing it, so they weasel their way into politics, they influence elections, they buy policy changes, they use their wealth to reshape the world to benefit them even further. They try to control narratives by buying up news outlets. They can dictate what's on our social media feeds. They spend an enormous amount of resources on pitting us all against each other, so we're too distracted to see that the real problem is them.
The reality of this situation is that everything can be traced back to a conception of humanity that is disconnected from place, from community, and from humanity. And I just want to say that the left has been right about every single one of these things. There was no recovery for Detroit. When the auto industry was decimated, when the steel industry was decimated, these places have not recovered. It's been literal decades. And all that's happened is that these places have been depopulated, they've been deindustrialized, and they've been impoverished. And all of that lost wealth has been concentrated into the hands of a few billionaires. That's what's happened. And America's productivity of the things that actually matter has gone down, not up. You know, we build less houses per year now than we did in the 70s. Think about all the advances that have been made with construction techniques, materials, insulation, the new power tools, the proliferation of gaining construction skills through educational things like the internet. And yet we produce less housing than ever. If you go around Los Angeles, California, right now, 31% of business property is vacant. But you will walk past empty, boarded up, rotten restaurants, past 3 food carts, or people cooking tacos under a tent. They'll be doing that in front of a hollowed out restaurant that's surrounded by chain link fence, and it looks to have been decaying for the better part of a decade. People cannot get to open a restaurant, a physical restaurant, because you have to make millions of dollars of revenue before you can pay the rent. And instead of that, it sits vacant, collecting trash and breeding pests. That is, I mean, you walk around downtown LA, and I can tell you that at least half of the commercial spaces are utterly vacant, and offices. It's some of the most valuable real estate in the world, and it sits empty. And people don't seem to have a problem with this. They're like, well, you know, if rents only went a little bit higher, guys, then the landlords would finally build. Governor Kathy Hochul on Fox 5 says she's working with Zohran Mamdani to set up a plan for universal child care, but the issues are all logistical at this point. Who would be working at facilities? Where are they? And how many staffers? Says she'll keep giving state money for NYPD overtime, especially in Subway. We want to keep that going. Mamdani campaigned on cutting police overtime. They've discussed rebuilding the police force, which is down in headcount. Mamdani has said he'll maintain current staff level. Any new MTA fare hikes? Hochul says yes. So in other words, looks like he's winning. It looks like he's bullying Hochul, or Hochul, whatever her fucking name is, into his way of seeing. Look at this is, by the way, this is who Asmongold and Destiny think are intelligent and deserve to be making all our decisions. Listen to this man.
See that the real problem is them.
Should the human race survive?
Everything kind of sucks right now, and as a result, most people are justifiably pretty angry. But for media outlets and politicians, that anger is their single most powerful tool because they can tell you where to direct it. And they don't even really care who it is, so long as it's not them. That's why it changes all the time. Sometimes it's trans people, sometimes it's immigrants. Most recently, it's been poor people. There's been this whole war going on over food stamps because when the government shut down, 42 million Americans lost access to SNAP benefits. Now that's an objective piece of information, an inarguable statistic, but depending on how it's presented to you, it may lead you to draw a drastically different conclusion than somebody else. For some, it might.
I think the number one thing that I would change about American education institutions is I would spend a lot of time making people conceptualize what 1 million people means. One of the things I like to do on this stream is when somebody's especially cringe is to say, show crowd size examples. This is what this audience looks like right now. This is what the audience looks like right now. This is 3,000 people. Everybody say hi. I think most of us don't conceptualize that 3,000 people is really in this fucking room right now, but they are. This is what, like, this is Hassan's election day stream. They can't even fit. They can't even fit it. This is an average Hassan stream. We can't even comprehend what numbers mean. Do you know what 1 million looks like? It's not even, it's basically incomprehensible. So when somebody says 34 million people, or 42 million, excuse me, have lost access to food, do you get that? Do you understand that every single one of those individual people feels hunger, has a family, as somewhere they lay their head, even if it's a fucking park bench? Do you understand what 42 million really fucking means?
Lost access to SNAP benefits. Now that's an objective piece of information, an inarguable statistic, but depending on how it's presented to you, it may lead you to draw a drastically different conclusion than somebody else. For some, it might put into perspective how dire the situation has gotten. Like, surely there's underlying issues with a system that's allowed 12% of its population to be unable to afford food. Alternatively, you might hear that and think, wait a minute, my tax dollars are paying for these greedy freeloaders? I'm busting my ass over here to barely make ends meet, and these leeches are using my money to buy cookies? That's not fair. And all it takes is highlighting a story or two of someone taking advantage of the system to make you think there's this rampant issue, that you're expected to feed all of these people with money you barely have enough of to feed yourself. This narrative has been used since the 70s because it's very effective. You work hard, they're lazy, this program is bad. It's easier than ever now to push this narrative because you can just AI generate a video of a fat lady screaming in Walmart and get everyone pissed off. But in order to properly analyze this, let's take a look at the data. First of all, SNAP only makes up about 1.5% of the overall federal budget. Less than 1/8 of what we spend on defense and 1/8 of what we spend just on interest on the debt that we owe. By my math, cutting this program would only save the average taxpayer a couple $100s a year. And of course, that's assuming that if they were to cut it, they would send you a refund in the mail. No, I'm pretty sure they would still take the same amount, but instead of reinvesting it into the economy, which is what SNAP ultimately does. They would just buy some more missiles or send a pile of cash to Argentina. Second of all, by definition, the majority of SNAP recipients fall under the umbrella of elderly, disabled, veterans, full-time caretakers, or just temporarily unemployed. Remember, not everybody who isn't working does so because they don't want to. It is very hard to find and keep a job right now. The fact that SNAP spending ebbs and flows so closely with the overall state of the economy should be proof that this program is primarily used for temporary relief. Even still, many of the people on SNAP—
It's what we call an automatic stabilizer, chat. SNAP benefits increase spending when the economy goes in the shitter, which prevents the economy from crashing harder. Because if you lose your job and then you qualify for SNAP benefits and you're able to keep going to the grocery store, that's good, because if you lost your job and there was no SNAP, when you stop going to the grocery store as much, that might cause the grocery store's business to become imperiled, and then they go bankrupt, and then they stop buying from the local farmers, and they stop paying their stockers and their cashiers and their managers and their the teamsters and the delivery truck drivers. And then a whole bunch of other people lose their jobs, and they stop paying their rent. They stop going out to restaurants. And you have this cascade of increasing spiral of failure. Whereas the automatic stabilizers kick in, the government gives money to people. It slows down the rate of the decline, and then it allows people to catch their breath and reinvest, is what Republicans are trying to undermine, which is why we went and had a Great Depression, because the economies grow when people think it's going to grow. So they're optimistic and they do shit. And I can tell you right now, I am not optimistic about America. I am in a mental recession about America. And if more and more people join me in that opinion, the economy is going to go down.
SNAP do work, and about 70% of the ones that do work full-time. That doesn't seem like a laziness problem, that seems like a wage problem. They need supplemental income to survive because of how little they're being paid. Of those full-time employees, their two most common employers were McDonald's and Walmart, who combined to earn $23 billion in profits last year. $23 billion, and you're telling me they can't afford to pay their employees enough so that they don't need government assistance? See, what that means is you wouldn't have to help pay for these people's food if their employer, a nearly $1 trillion corporation, just paid them a livable wage. You're more upset at the people using the program than the companies who have put them in a position where they even need it in the first place. Also, Walmart double dips here. The majority of food stamps are redeemed at Walmart. So not only do they save money by underpaying their staff, but their revenue then gets subsidized by this program because that's where people tend to use it. Final statistic, about a third of SNAP recipients, over 12 million of them, are children. What's the argument there? Are they not working hard enough? What, you don't want to get a job just because you're 7? Like, can we stop for 1 second to think about what you're saying here? You have let somebody convince you that in this situation, the only way to make your life better is if 12 million children starve. So I want to ask, who is more to blame here? A bunch of kids who got born into poverty, or CEOs with more money than anybody could spend in 1,000 lifetimes, who expect you to solve the problem that they helped create?
For some people, it doesn't matter what you say about capitalism, they will still go to war for it, even if it's not working for them. Statistically speaking, it's probably not. You'll try to criticize a multi-billionaire who's not paying enough taxes, and people will defend them like, hey, it's not their fault. They're just taking advantage of loopholes like any smart business person would. And you're like, okay, so then we agree there's a problem with the rules, right? If they're just exploiting the system, then maybe the system shouldn't be so easy to exploit. We've reached a point where a lot of the core principles of a free market no longer apply. Like the idea that you can vote with your dollar. I get to pick which businesses I support, therefore the best ones will succeed and the worst ones will fail. Yeah, except when one company is allowed to corner the market.
That's not even true. Can we just talk about the real world for a minute? You know what happens whenever I decide I actually need something and I want to spend money, which, trust me, chat, as you can tell, doesn't happen that often. I don't like to spend money. I am very Scottish. I'm a super skinflint, okay? I don't like to just buy shit, all right? I can't tell you, like, I legitimately don't like to just buy shit. When I decide I actually do need to buy things, you know what happens? I'm like, how do I know what's good? I'm like, how do I know this lens is actually a quality lens? How do I know that this thing is actually going to deliver what I want? How do I know that this product is actually a decent product? How do I know? Like, I And I don't know. I have to go off of other people's advice, review sites. I have to do all sorts of research. There's a huge informational gap between me, the consumer, and the creator and producer of products. And I have to rely on a lot of other third-party information in order to figure out if maybe this product is any good. Does that sound like I have the ability to, evaluate every producer of a good and evaluate them purely on price, quality, etc.? No! There's all sorts of confounding misinformation that's out there. The market has never operated as the way that people that support it ideologically describe it. It's just not how it works. And it never has, and it never will. And it's surprising to me that people pretend that it does.
Market and price out all their competition, suddenly there isn't any.
And we would have small businesses tell us if they walked into a Walmart or a Costco, the retail price at those stores, the price on the shelves at those stores is lower than the wholesale price a small business is getting. And so there are huge disparities here.
And that's now feeding into itself, right? The more dire the economy is for everyone, the less freedom they have when they're deciding what to pay for. Amazon is certainly not the only place to buy things, but historically speaking, it's almost always the cheapest and most convenient. So how do you convince somebody who's also been forced to pinch pennies due to their own circumstances that they need to spend more time and money buying that same thing from a local mom and pop shop when they could just click 3 buttons and have it magically appear at their door in 3 hours? It's not even really fair to impose that because that person is also struggling. But then the cycle continues. The small business closes, Amazon and Walmart extend their reach even further, and once all competition is defeated, then they can just raise the prices to be whatever they want. They can train an algorithm to charge you the maximum price they think you'll pay at any given moment. Now, one of the most common counter arguments you'll hear if you bring up the idea of raising taxes on the ultra wealthy is that, well, if you do that, they're just gonna leave. First of all, no, they're not. That's a bluff they've been using for years, perpetuated by media networks owned by, you guessed it, rich people who don't want their taxes to go up. Sure, a few of them might leave, but the kinds of people who are willing to go to the trouble of moving their entire business from New York City to like Kissimmee, Florida, are probably already doing everything they can to avoid paying any taxes at all. It doesn't seem like a very productive mindset to cater to this parasitic minority at the expense of everybody else. Second of all, oh my God, can we grow some fucking balls here?
You don't understand. They're not gonna like it if we raise their taxes.
Do you hear yourself? Do you hear how pathetic you sound? Okay, so what, we can't do anything then? That's it? It's over, they won? Your plan is that we should just give up and let the billionaires have whatever they want. Buddy, we've already tried that, and that's not working either. Third of all, this criticism is predicated on an idea that taxation essentially has a bell curve to it, where after a certain rate, your overall revenue actually decreases because people will lose the incentive to work as hard or, like you're saying, move away. With this in mind, there have been studies done by economists who believe that every country has its own ideal rate for maximum efficiency. However, the implication that raising taxes would cause the overall revenue to go down would only be true if we were on the tail end of this bell curve, and we are nowhere close to that. So if your main concern is to maximize total revenue, it's pretty clear which direction we should be moving in. Otherwise, the very metric your point is referencing contradicts the argument you're trying to make. Now, even having said all of that, I'm not going to sit here and act like just raising taxes.
Social barbarism. Thank you to the 5 tier 1s. You're the best.
This is an immediate fix to all of our problems because we'd still have to rely on elected officials to actually use that money in a sensible way. I'd be happy to contribute more if I knew it was going to better healthcare or nicer parks or public transportation.
It just so happens that most of the people that want to raise taxes on the rich also care about the government spending the money in a responsible way. It's the people that want to keep your taxes down that also want to steal the money that is there. It tends to go hand in hand.
But if my money's just going to be used to blow up a hospital on the other side of the world, then yeah, maybe I'd rather just give it to a food bank. I don't know all the answers because at the end of the day, no matter how hard I try to expand my legacy beyond it, I'm still just the road work ahead guy. But I do know that this amount of wealth inequality that's showing zero signs of slowing down anytime soon is not sustainable. Turns out that actually every single thing in the world becoming a for-profit commodity, from housing to healthcare, is just a way to to enrich a few people at the cost of many. And I have to wonder if we've finally reached a point now where the greed has gone too far, that it's now so impossible to ignore that no amount of gaslighting about how the economy is good actually will convince people who are dying because they can't afford to go to the doctor that this is just how life should be. History shows that unfortunately sometimes things have to get worse before they can get better. And if this is what it takes for a return to class solidarity, then I guess at least we're closer to that than we've been in a long time. We just need to put down our phones, set aside our differences for a little bit, and unite on this one.
Solidarity forever, man. Are you usually making faces because this guy isn't usually base? Because I don't know him. All I know is this video is very base.
Issue. They want us divided because they're afraid of how strong we would be if we stood together. Do not fall for it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go argue on Reddit about how Ghost of Yote is woke because they didn't make the main character hot enough for me. Thank you for watching.
By the way, chat, there was one video I really wanted to show you guys, which is Pete Hegseth talking about unlawful orders.
Unearthing comments from Pete Hegseth saying that the military won't follow unlawful orders, which of course is part of what he's been attacking 6 Democrats for saying in a video. Well, it's also the same thing Hegseth is investigating Senator Mark Kelly for, threatening to court-martial him over it. Here's what K-File found from Hegseth in 2016.
I do think there have to be consequences for abject war crime. If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders.
There's always a fucking video with this guy. There's always a fucking video with the Trump guys. God!
From their commander-in-chief. There's a standard, there's an ethos, there's a belief that we are above what so many things that our enemies or others would do.
He's talking about not following unlawful orders. Does that sound familiar?
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law or are...
There really isn't 8 billion DGGers, man. There is not 8 billion. There's like maybe 300 or 400 of you that are really DGGers, and there's like another like 3,000 or 4,000 guys that are like, I guess they fell into watching his Factorio streams at one point, and they just stayed.
Our Constitution.
That is, of course, the video 6 Democrats released 2 weeks ago saying that the military can refuse unlawful orders, which Trump said was seditious behavior punishable by death. Senator Mark Kelly will join me in just a moment to respond. But first, K-File's Andrew Kaczynski is out front. So, Andrew, incredible reporting that you've done here. A stunning video you uncovered. This is Hegseth talking about unlawful orders as the Democrats that he's now accusing of being seditious. What have you found here?
Yeah, well, Aaron, this video of Pete Hegseth is from 2016 when he was a Fox News contributor. And it's important because it shows him saying the military would refuse unlawful orders from a president. And this is the very idea he is now attacking Democrats for repeating. Now, Aaron, if that was a core military value in 2016, the question is, why is promoting it suddenly being portrayed as seditious by Hegseth in 2025? Military law obviously has not changed. What has changed here is the politics around it. There's a different commander-in-chief. Then it was Barack Obama. And back then, in that same event, Hegseth was actually very, very critical of Obama, with Hegseth arguing that Americans deserved a commander-in-chief, talking about Obama. That was befitting of the military's loyalty. Listen to him here.
But I've heard veterans say, hey, I don't want my kids to join this military today. I can understand under Barack Obama in some ways with the rules of engagement and the culture, but I still want to believe and hope that there are plenty of Americans who understand what this country represents, that are willing to put their lives on the line, and families that understand the importance of that to encourage their son or daughter. I just hope we get a commander-in-chief befitting of that loyalty.
Andrew, I know you reached out to the White House, you reached out to the Defense Department, or as they now call themselves, the Department of War, about this video. What did they tell you?
Yeah, Aaron, we did reach.
I think the real DGGers have moved on to Dean Winters and Parker Get a Job. Those guys. There aren't ideological liberals in Destiny's community. That was just something he adopted as an ad hoc position to oppose Hassan. Right? Like they're not like, it was never a liberal place. It was a Destiny. It was a Destiny cult, and he adopted that ad hoc because he needed to find a position that was opposed to Hassan. but not Republican. So he just naturally went with the Democratic Party establishment to try to frustrate Hassan. That's it. And he doesn't really believe in anything, because most centrists don't believe in anything either. They're careerists. They are the people that are oriented toward the status quo. If they were born in China, they would be CCP members. Like, they're not people that are like ideologically consistent. They're people that are just personally ambitious, or they have some sort of orientation toward social conformity.
Out to both the White House and the Pentagon about this newly surfaced video that we found. Now, Kinsley Wilson, that's a Pentagon spokesperson, told us that Hegseth has been clear and made clear there are already procedures for unlawful orders, telling CNN, quote, "The orders being given to our military under President Trump are lawful," and the despicable video of the seditious six urging our troops to defy their chain of command was a politically motivated influence operation by elected officials aimed at sowing discord and chaos in our armed forces. We also reached out to the White House, Aaron, and in a lengthy statement to CNN, Anna Kelly, that's a White House spokesperson, said that Hegseth has been entirely consistent in his position then, and added that Democrats are trying to deliberately manufacture doubt where none exists. They told us, quote, "These lawmakers sow doubt in a clear chain of command, which is reckless, dangerous, and deeply irresponsible for an elected official. It's asinine that CNN cares more about the secretary's uncontroversial remarks than those of elected."
They're the same exact remarks. I don't even know why people bother listening to this shit anymore. I don't even understand why people bother. Like, I said this 5 years ago, but it's just like, why do people even bother? Why do we bother listening to this shit anymore?
Officials who are putting military service members in harm's way by telling them to disobey their commander-in-chief.
All right, Andrew Kaczynski, thank you very much. Out front now, Democratic Senator Mark Kelly, as promised. And Senator Kelly, I want to play again for you what Andrew Kaczynski found and unearthed here, exactly what Pete Hegseth said. Here he is.
I do think there have to be consequences for abject war crime. If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief. There's a standard, there's an ethos, there's a belief that we are above what so many things that our enemies or others would do.
So, Senator, what do you think of that?
Well, Aaron, I think he's correct, and it's exactly what we said. But when we said it, Pete Hegseth now, said 8 years later, 9 years later, he says what we said was false and reckless. And I think it begs the question, what has changed? And it's pretty obvious what has changed is we have an unqualified Secretary of Defense who only cares about sucking up to this president and loyalty to this president. That's the difference. It's who's commander-in-chief. What we said was uncontroversial. The White House sort of confirmed that. They said his uncontroversial remarks, they were the same as ours. I mean, this is so ridiculous. And what the president wants to do now is intimidate us and stop us from talking, which is not consistent with our Constitution. And beyond that, Aaron, he said we should be hanged for what we said, executed for what we said. And what we said was exactly the same thing that Pete Hegseth said in 2016.
Of course, sedition, right, can be punishable by death. I just want to note the Pentagon spokesperson today, in the response to Andrew Kaczynski, said, referred to you as the despicable video of the seditious six, urging troops to defy their chain of command. That's how it was described today. And Secretary of Hegseth is investigating you over it now. I think it's the Secretary of the Navy has till early next week, right, to finish an investigation into you. I mean, has anybody reached out to you? Have they tried to talk to you or interview you for this investigation?
They have not. The only notification I've received about this was Pete Hegseth, which says everything you need to know about this guy. He's not serious. He cares more about views on his Twitter account than the law, about process. He is an unserious and unqualified individual who should never have been allowed 1,000 yards from the White House or from the Pentagon. And now he's the Secretary of Defense. And you see the consequence of that. We're seeing that in how this operation.
I think basically what Donald Trump has done is he has deflated the mask. And a lot of liberalism is a desire to go back to the time when you were naive. Like, what is the cause of so much anger at Donald Trump is because he has made so many people have to stop being so naive about the way the world works today, about how systems are unfair, about how people are oppressed, about the nature of our racist government. I mean, you don't see mass resignations from the government because they're targeting people based on race, right? You don't see a bunch of ICE agents quitting and going, I refuse to target people based on their skin color. This is outrageous. You don't see walkouts from major police departments or the FBI because they've been doing it for decades. They just did it behind plausible deniability. But now that they get to do it openly, they're not mad. They're ecstatic. So when people are mad at Donald Trump, a lot of them are mad because they've lost their naivete. They've lost their plausible deniability. And they're mad at Trump for exposing who they really are. And that mask off moment has value because it creates a tension. And that tension is the status quo Democratic Party, the party of return to brunch, the party of return to normal. It's not plausible anymore. And we have two paths set out before us, socialism or barbarism. And Donald Trump is making that very clear. There is no middle way. That is an illusion. There is no return to normal. Normal never existed. All that's happened is that you are no longer naive. The blinders have been lifted. You can see the world for the way that it is. And I ask you, do you choose socialism or do you choose barbarism? And that is the question that every single person must ask themselves. Today, there is no going back. There is only going forward. What direction should we choose? I choose socialism. Join me.
Is being handled in Venezuela. There are serious consequences when you put unqualified people in very important positions.
So the talk of sedition and, obviously Congressman Crow had played some of the threats that he has received as a result of this. I know that you and your wife, former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, have seen a real surge in threats because of the response from the Trump administration to this video. What kind of threats are you getting? What things are you?
Well, we get more threats now in a single day than we would get in months, and they're graphic. They're violent. They're not only against me, but they're against Gabby. And we're no strangers to political violence. She was shot in the head meeting with her constituents. And Donald Trump was nearly assassinated. He should know. And he called out political violent rhetoric and said it should stop. And he didn't even make it to Thanksgiving before he's calling for us to be hanged. Have we ever heard a president of the United States calling for the execution of members of Congress? And Aaron, we can't normalize this. That's one of the problems here, is that Donald Trump is so singularly unqualified for this job as president of the United States, and the things he says is so ridiculous, people are starting to get comfortable with it. And he does it for a reason. He wants to shut people up, but he's not going to shut me up. I'm not going to be intimidated by him or Pete Hegseth and his threats to court-martial me. I mean, the only way, this ends is for them to, turn around and try to focus on the things that matter for the American people. The president should be focused on things like, costs and the cost of health care and groceries, the things that are affecting everyday Americans that they need some help with.
What he did today, of course, as you point out, though, was talk about these strikes that he announced he's doing in Venezuela. Hasn't done them yet, but he announced that he is doing them as a de facto reality. Also said maybe in Colombia. And we've heard the changing story on the strike in the boat in the Caribbean. And Pete Hegseth knew from September 2nd when he went on Fox News and said he watched the strike and he was so confident. And now he's saying actually there's a lot of other things he didn't have time to watch the whole story. What are you hearing about Hegseth's standing within the military right now?
Well, I can't imagine it's good, and it's his stock is certainly going way down with Republicans in the United States Senate. He said he watched the whole video. He made like he was in charge of the whole strike until things started going sideways. And then he decides his best way out is to throw the admiral under the bus. That isn't leadership. But I'm not surprised. I mean, this guy is not a leader. He is by far the least qualified Secretary of Defense we've ever had. He runs around the stage talking about lethality and warrior ethos and hunting and killing people. That is not the words of a responsible Secretary of Defense. He should be focused on equipping people and training them, making sure people follow the rule of law, And he is every way the opposite, the person we want in such a position of responsibility. I mean, this guy is in the command authority for the release of nuclear weapons. And, you know, he spends half the day tweeting memes.
Oh, God damn it, I was muted! No! I'm not reading that again. I'm not reading that again. Look, I've got a new follower, chat. We have ourselves a new follower. I was spitting so hard, too. I was just saying Ethan Klein is a fucking loser. That's basically that's the long and the short of it. Well, chat, let me see here. Give me 1 second. Oh my God. I wanted to show you this, that Zoran and Bernie Sanders are joining with the Starbucks workers on strike.
Okay, everyone, we're going to get started. Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here at a picket with Starbucks workers like the ones on my right and the ones on my left. Workers who are braving the December cold and the much deeper chill of unfair labor practice in this city and across this country, and the fear that has come with that of union busting while they demand the better working conditions that they deserve. So many working people across this city, these are not demands, these are demands for decency. These are workers who are simply being asked to respect that they're being asked that their labor be repaid in a manner that allows them to build a dignified life. And I joined them because I want to do everything that I can to show my solidarity, but also because I know that the voices of everyday working are not amplified with the volume that management so easily receives. So I want to share a few here this afternoon, numbers that I hope will place this struggle into perspective. $36.2 billion, the amount of money that Starbucks made just last year. $95.8 million. That's the compensation Brian Nichol earned for 4 months of work last year. 6,600, that is how much times larger Nichol's pay was than the average Starbucks barista. 400. That is how many labor law violations the NLRB has found. That 100. That's the amount of stores that are on strike, and 85, the number of cities that they are taking. Now, what these numbers show us are a two-pronged picture. On one side, corporate greed and self-enrichment, the cost of its own workers, and on the other, remarkable solidarity by those workers who have been exploited and missed time and time again. Solidarity, as much as we speak of it, we have to remember is the concept. It is measured in picket lines, stood on in the rain. It is measured in rent payments that workers do not know if they will be able to meet. Childcare bills they do not know will be able to afford. And it is measured in who have never met one another, linking arms to fight for a shared goal and a fairer future. Because how else could we just being on a picket line with Starbucks workers, alongside workers of 32B, alongside workers from HTC, alongside workers from WGA, alongside workers from every single sector across the, because we understand that no matter our trade, we are workers at the end of the day. And I am proud to be here today and proud that senior members of my transition team and administration have joined Starbucks in the days and weeks prior. And I am proud to stand here alongside incredible elected at the city level, the state level, and also to my left, Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Because all of us are united in the belief that we must, where every worker can live a life of, we must build a New York where our words, as we say, that this is a union town. And we must build a New York where the workers who power it are able to afford to live in it. Thank you so much. And now, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Well, it is here with you. Stand.
Vermont equals New York. Oh, you're curious? So the Starbucks union is a national union. And Bernie Sanders and Zoran are some of the most prominent politicians that are supporting the Starbucks baristas going on strike and becoming organized. And so they are supporting them striking. And they did a joint press conference because Bernie Sanders, if Zoran and Bernie Sanders go anywhere together, then the press is very curious. And so they'll cover it. You see all the different press microphones that are in front of them? This is to help the union. This is called doing something altruistically, where you use the power that you have to help other people who you support become more powerful as well. This is Bernie Sanders and Zohran Mamdani standing with people that make, $20 an hour and trying to make their lives better. This might be weird to you if you're a right winger. You might not be used to people trying to help others. This is called helping.
Starbucks, who are telling this company they are sick and tired of corporate, tired of union busting. And what the mayor-elect pointed out is that what has happened is happened all over this. We are living in an economy where the people on top never, ever so good. You got one man more wealth than the bottom of American households. And while the CEOs make unbelievable salaries, 60% of our in Vermont, New York City, all over the country are living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to pay the rent, struggling to pay for health care, struggling to put food on. And what Zohran and I are dedicated, creating a nation and an economy which works for all of us, not just the 1%. So I just want to thank the Starbucks workers for their courage here and around this country. We are going. Thank you very much.
Before we take a question, since I know we have some friends here with us, if we can first have a round of applause for the Starbucks workers. We have Kai Fritz on my left, Noor Hayat on my left, and we have so many workers inspired us single day. Just want to say thank you. And
right now, what we're here to say that we are standing with Starbucks workers, and we're going to create an economy that works for all. And I'm proud to that all over this country, we're seeing candidates doing exactly what the mayor-elect did here. They are running campaigns on the grassroots. They're mobilizing volunteers. They're standing up to the oligarchy. And in fact, we are going to change.
you know, as I was walking in, Bernadette was asking, when am I going? I said, technically, but I also want to, when I become the mayor of this city, and I've said this to many of the youth here today, many of the rank, and we want to build an administration characterized by being there for every single, and sometimes their voices are drowned out. And when you are the mayor of New, you have with that a platform where it is violated, a platform where we celebrate. UP was able to accomplish in the largest ever settlement that has been won in this city, $28 million, and also that we will, of a fiscal kind and also of our own political will necessary to ensure that we hold these. My focus is on the that I ran on. That's what I'm. But I look forward to.
I will shock all of you suggesting to tell the people you are the affordability will be responsible if we don't in raising for people on the Affordable Care Act on average, doubling, in some cases tripling and quadrupling. Should go out to those people, see a doubling or tripling in how he is the affordable, not to mention.
Say that our focus is.
Actually, that's one of the things that I think people really underestimate is how important having a predictable schedule really is. And that's something that I think is you can't even get a second or third job because you don't know whether you're supposed to show up from week to week. My buddy's premium went from $42 a month to $482. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Your second question, and I look forward to the.
Well, I'll let them deal with this issue.
I'm not worried about. Do not know this clear and direct with the play politics staff up.
All right, chat. We can't really hear the reporters, and we're hearing fucking. I raised the volume as loud as I could, and then I took a nice fucking New York City car horn to the ear. This is really exciting, and make sure you show your support to any Starbucks workers on strike. Never cross a picket line, chat. The other thing I want to say is, like, don't allow yourself to slip into a nihilistic approach. Don't allow yourself to become nihilistic in your views. Do not allow yourself to slip into a position where nothing matters. And I've seen people slide into this, and once you slide into that, it takes extraordinary effort to claw your way out. That's why you'll never see me pretend like something like this doesn't matter. Coffee baristas making a living wage matters. All right, everybody, that's going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for supporting the stream. We'll be back tomorrow. Same damn time, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. Also, chat, I have been gaming a little bit with Nesua over on Nesua's stream the past few nights. We did a grind this weekend. Most I've played video games in years in one day. That was fucking crazy. So make sure you throw a follow on Nesua for the occasional Mike from PA Arc Raiders gaming. We've been doing a lot of Stella Montes runs, and they have been bloody affairs. All right, everybody, stay safe. Solidarity forever, my friends. I'll see you all soon. And who's streaming today? Anybody streaming today? We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out who to raid tomorrow. All right, everybody. See you soon. Peace out. Oh, wait. We'll figure it out tomorrow.